are good to go?
Yep.
Alrighty, well, the rockstar is in the house, Matt McLean. Dude, before you start talking, I am absolutely amazed, like the amount of effort and the travel that you did to come here today.
Thanks for having us on here, Hooli, man. It's great to be here. But yeah, it was a bit of a trek. Obviously flew up this morning, hopped on 2 buses, 2 trains and a ferry and then walked from the mall here. But we're here, so it's going to be good, man.
Yeah, you were saying to Brooke off the air that you lived in Petersham, was that correct? Or lived around Sydney for a bit?
Yeah, so in 2020, I actually moved to Drummoyne.
Yep.
And it was a bit of an unintentional move. I actually went to Orange to do some driver coaching, a big group coaching days, which I do, or I used to also do. And then COVID got really bad in Melbourne. So the borders were shut. Ended up staying with a friend in Drummoyne, which then turned into 6 months because I had the opportunity to race at Bathurst for the first time. So I was like, right, I'm going to stay here and wait it out. Because if I go back to Melbourne, then there's a less chance of me actually getting back to be able to race. So just stuck it out, just 6 months just for the one race. But then after that, in 2021, I lived in Petersham as well for similar circumstances, really. Because we had a few races in Super 2 at the end of the year, and Melbourne was still going through some dramas of the lockdown. So just stayed in Petersham with some bandmates.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
The bandmates was the Crookeds bandmate was another, because you got to explain a bit more before we get into the racing stuff, which obviously happens in this podcast.
Yeah,
like a bit more of a background. So we'll start with like the music and like all that type of the arts type of thing. So have you just only been in the Crookeds, or have you been in other bands, and how did that actually all like begin?
Yeah, so the Crookeds came as a bit of a weird one. So I actually went to a bar to watch a gig, and it was the Crookeds before I joined it. It was just not so much a serious band, it was a bit of a pub band.
Yep.
And I was like, wow, these guys are awesome. And after the show, I hit it off with the singer really well and all the other boys, and we sort of just became best buds.
Yep.
And the singer decided he wanted to take it more seriously and was like, yo, man, like, do you want to join this band with me? And I was like, oh, yeah, like, pretty keen. Around about the same time, me and the singer actually joined another band together, and that was going really well. So then he asked me again, he's like, yo, like, do you want to take it serious? Like, let's get this band going. And I was like, yeah, right. So we both left that other band and then started taking the Crookeds seriously, found some other members that were serious as well, and it sort of went from there. But yeah, played music from when I was 7 years old. So I started playing guitar. I got lessons for like 3 months and then self-taught after that.
Yeah, right. Like, and was there a reason that you chose like bass, like the bass guitar over like, obviously the other instruments?
Yeah, so it was because it was like I took a big break from playing guitar pretty much just to focus on my racing. It was like there was no time spent on anything else really, so I just stuck playing guitar. And it was sort of a bit of an easy transition for me to hop back in and learn all the songs on bass rather than worrying about chords and all this sort of stuff. So yeah, I just started getting back on the bass, and to be honest, fell in love straight away. So yeah, it was a bit of a calling. So it worked out really well. Yeah,
and your dad, I've got him on Facebook. He's pretty avid about avid about not only your racing career but your music career. Has he been has he been supportive of both? And did he say, listen, I think music will make more money than the car racing thing, or did he just go, honestly, Matt, just go for your dreams? Like, what was it like for you?
Yeah, like Dad just pretty much just go for your dreams, really. So he comes to like a couple shows like here and there, but he's like, he's always at the track for all my races, and we used to go go-karting together, and it was just him and I. So yeah, I would say he's definitely more of an advocate of the racing side of things, but he likes music too. So yeah, it sort of works both ways. Yeah,
and the Boost Mobile, you got the Boost Mobile shirt. So you come up here, I think you're one of the busiest men in pit lane, and obviously Super 2 this year, I think, in my opinion, and you probably agree with this, is struggling, I think, for cars or something. Is there something going on where they're, even Jaie Robson as well today has said that there's not enough cars, and you guys are struggling to get on the grid. Is that what's going on with the whole Super 2 thing at the moment?
Yeah, well, you absolutely nailed it. The biggest issue is car availability. So a lot of car collectors have purchased the cars and then just want to park them in garages. They're not really willing to lease them out. And if they are, it's like a massive lease fee. So it's sort of numbers that most people can't afford.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really difficult for a lot of people. There's a lot of really good drivers in Super 2 that haven't been able to actually find a seat for the year. There's pretty much only one going around at the moment. I would imagine there's a fair few people fighting for it.
Yeah, right.
So the dollar's sort of is getting driven up. So yeah, that makes it hard for guys like myself. I don't have any like family support or anything like that. All my money is through income generated by working or just by sponsorship as well. So I have a few contra deals to sort of help that stuff. But yeah, it is a busy time. You're right. Like I am extremely busy. Been working 3 jobs as well as running my own business at the moment, just to try and generate funds to go racing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you touch on that? Like the jobs that you're doing, because you've kind of done different to what me and some other drivers do. I wouldn't say all. Like most go through state racing, but it seems like what I've noticed is you've basically picked it up from go-karts and gone straight to supercars, but thought the money that I've got, I'm going to make the most work, make it work and go straight to a supercar.
Yeah, kind of. It's a bit of a weird one, to be honest. Like, I always had an ambition to go to cars, but all throughout go-karts, everyone around me was always like, Matty, you're not rich. Like, just forget it. You're just going to disappoint yourself. You try for a year and it'll fail. And when you're a kid, like, all the older people are smarter than you, so you'd listen to them. And I believed them all.
Yeah.
And I actually did a race in go-karts against, like, a lot of the, like, really good supercar drivers at the time. You know, guys like Cam Waters, Nick Percat, like, all these sorts of guys. I think it was about 10 of them in the field. But then there's all the best karters in the country. There was, like, a current world champion or 2 current world champions as well. I actually did it with Jimmy Golding, who was my co-driver.
Yeah.
And we ended up winning. And it was actually only a couple of days later, I got a call from Terry Wyhoon. So he'd been in talks with one of my customers from driver coaching in go-karts.
Yep.
And this guy is a really big advocate for me. His name's Bill Caracolis, so shout out to him. He's always doing everything he can to try and help me get sponsors. Anyways, he was talking to Terry. He's like, man, you got to get this guy in a supercar. I'm telling you he'll be good. Terry's like, oh, yeah, like, what's he done? He's like, go-karts. And he's like, oh, okay. Like, yeah, all right. Like, I'll think about it. But then that sort of gave him enough firing power for Bill to be like, Terry, like, get this guy in. So Terry gave me a call and told me to come in for a meeting. And then, gave me a test in the car and it went well. And then he helped me out to get racing. So, yeah, there was always the intention to go and race other categories. But, yeah, I guess, like, through having no financial family support or anything like that and listening to all those people around me, I thought it wasn't a possibility. But here we are. So
We've had Tom Williamson here, who's an avid driver coach and stuff like that.
Oh,
Can you were, I think you were working over 2019 or 18 with, was it Arrow or was it, you've worked for Energy Course and Arrow.
Yeah.
But did within those 2 jobs, did the coaching come inside that, or was that your own business within that? Like, how's it all work for you with those 4 jobs? Like, it'd be good for you to explain the 4 jobs that keep you racing. Do you know what I mean? Like, if I was to say to the audience now, Matt's week schedule, what would it be like with the 4 jobs and whatnot?
Yeah, so I'll backtrack a little bit. So my job in terms of like my own business in driver training just always like existed really for the last, I would say, 10 years from when I sort of started going good in go-karts. Started doing that straight away. It's a bit of cash on the side. So that was separate for any of the, I guess, job ventures that I had. Now, when I left school, I started working for Melbourne Kart Centre. Yeah. And I was working there for a little bit, and through that developed a relationship with Bart Price, who owns TPE Car Technology, which is Arrow Karts.
Yeah.
And we just became friends, and a few months later, he asked me to go work for him and offered me some real good money. Yeah. I was like, oh, I'm going to go do that, like work for the supplier, you know?
Yeah.
And went there, and things started going well. So I was just doing kart assembly when I started there. So I was building go-karts and then worked my way up into sales and marketing. But at the same time, I was doing R&D and developing new products with Darren Hossack. Yep. So we'd be working on new projects, developing new karts, all that sort of stuff. And so I got to work on some really cool projects there. So the Arrow X5 kart is like my project essentially. So it was like a, I'd say 18-month period of just making go-karts, go back to the factory, try and like just back and forth, go on the track, back to the factory. Yeah. Because the factory was located in Clayton, and then we'd moved to, where were we? Keysborough. Yeah. So it was all like around the Oakley Go-Kart Club. So we're going to there and Todd Road like flat out, like all the time.
So they moved warehouses during that time?
During the time.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So it was crazy. All hands on deck for that. But yeah, I'd say the development on that was also, so Tom Williamson, who you had on the show, he did a lot of the development too, or mainly more so the testing. Yeah. So a lot of the development stuff was myself and Hossack. And then, we'd give the karts out to people to drive. So anyways, at the same time as I was working there, racing go-karts became my job too. So they were employing me to race, paying for all my stuff, which then made karting affordable. And that's when I really saw my success. So when I started winning, national championships, state championships, and got to go over to the world championship as well, which was really cool.
Where was the Worlds at?
So at Le Mans in France.
Right. So you went to France to race.
Yeah, it was awesome. We was in a category we'd never done, so in X30, which I'm sure you're familiar with.
Yep.
And I was in like club and like, K100. And anyways, went over there in X30 and we poled it on debut, which is really cool. But then got taken out turn 1 by like just some young kid who was also, having his early days in senior categories, but he crashed into me at turn 1, spun me around. I had about a field of like 40 karts pile into me, and we wrote the kart off. So
holy shit! Do you have any spares in the Worlds though? Like, did you get another kart out and have to start from the back, or?
Yeah, so we were with the Cosmic Factory team.
Yep.
So there was an abundance of karts.
That would have been with like a connection through DPE, wouldn't it? At the time?
So it was through IAMI. So Remo Luciani, who's another advocate of mine, someone who helped my motorsport career a lot, get me going in karts. Yeah, so we had a partnership with him going as well, but because he's the IAMI distributor here in Australia, he always tees that stuff up. So when you win the Australian Championship here, basically Karting Australia gives you a bit of cash to go overseas, and then it guarantees you entry, and then like Remo from Miami, he will support that as well. So
karting's changed a lot. Like you've said, we'll come into the studio today, and I basically raced 2010 below, and you've raced above and then gone
Yeah.
into karts. But like, it's the whole thing's changed. Like I'm used to the whole Yamaha era. Like you would have been that at the age of 7. Well, how old were you when at the age of 7 back then?
So I started karting in 2004 when I was 7.
Okay.
So I went through, I had comas. So
Yeah.
in midgets, I ran midgets, rookies, and then went to junior light, junior club, and all that sort of stuff. And then, was in club and light with Yamaha for, let's say, 2 years, 3 years. And then we went to the iArmy. So, it was actually another product I did development on as well, the IMBK 100, through my relationship with Remo, that is. So,
yeah, we got to go back. We'll go back to the racing stuff later, but you got to tell me about like Sony and the boys, like with the obviously the whole thing with the crookheads basically surprised me and Brooke. Like it's a total different thing because you just got that aura around you at the racetrack where you're not just like a driver.
Thanks.
You've also got, you know what I mean? Like you got both that's going on. And like Brooke was like going, man, this guy's amazing. Like
multi-talented. Yeah, you're across both. But I think, did you ever use, like, you mentioned you had several jobs. Was there any jobs that you were doing like in the bands or in music, like as you were doing karts and that helped fund things as well?
Through the band, no. So any of the money that we raised, any of the revenue generated for the band, we just put back into the band and reinvested it and also put in money for ourselves.
Yep.
Or from ourselves more so. So, like never any, we'd make good money, but we'd spend it all really just trying to get the band off the ground.
Completely understand that.
But yeah, like it wasn't that busy of a schedule doing both at the same time. Like everyone's like, oh, how do you have time for both? But the band stuff is always at nighttime and there's 3 other people plus like, we've got like a management team and stuff like all that sort of people, those people to help get everything off the ground. So it was little work for us other than writing, and then we'd rehearse in the studio every Monday.
Yep.
Other than that, like it's fine. Like I've raced during the day and played gigs at night.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so you found the balance being able to do both.
Yeah. It's not too bad. Like it sounds crazy. But yeah, not to discredit her. Like it was pretty crazy.
So you were so some weekends you'd be karting and then going straight to a gig and then coming back to karts. Would you do that some weekends?
I'm trying to remember where, but
like
it was actually
a
Super 3 race, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe like Super 3 Sandown. I did a couple races, Super 3 before Super 2.
Yeah.
And I think it was maybe Super 3 Sandown. I think I played on the Saturday night, so I raced, played, and then went back and raced on the Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with your have you ever had any favorite tracks that you've done like with the band or anything like that? Do you have a specific song that basically like this is a good song, this will make a good hit?
Yeah, the most recent one that we put out maybe 6 weeks ago called Frame of Mind.
Yeah.
It's just gone really well. It sort of transformed our band. So our Spotify numbers are going really well. We've got a rotation on Triple J, sort of something we've been trying at for a while, and getting some real big opportunities from that. Yeah. So that's probably been our biggest one. Other than that, there was an old one called Love, which we don't play anymore, but it's got the sexiest riff, and I just love playing it. So it's got a slap in the bass, like all that sort of like all the cool stuff, solos, like soaring vocals. Yeah.
Did you look up to any musicians growing up though? Like when you like to get into music? Because it's kind of like with race cars, right? A lot of people in cars look up to Ayrton Senna, for example. Did you look up to any specific bands or artists or anything like that to get you into it, or not really?
As a Aussie kid, you'd love Akadaka and stuff like that. The Eagles, which I saw, there's a bit of memorabilia for the Eagles here. There's a gold record or something like that getting around. It's pretty cool. Yeah. But there was no like one particular musician. Like when I was that old, I wasn't looking into the band members. I was just looking at the band. But probably the biggest thing was one of my cousins. He played bass, and then my next door neighbor, who actually got me into go-karts, he played guitar. And I just wanted to be like them. They're so cool. Like they're older and they wear cool stuff, and they're playing cool stuff. I was like, I just want to be like them. So I was like, yeah, I'll get into guitar. So it's pretty much because they have no like particular big musician or anything like that. Just family and friends. Yeah.
So wait, your next door neighbor who got you into music also got you into karting.
Yeah.
Is that how it worked?
Yeah.
You got to tell me. You got to tell me more of that story.
All right. So I actually wanted to get into motorbikes. So I'd been to the Crossy Demons, and I was like, oh, these guys, they're sick. And I was like, I just want to do flips like that. And at the time, I was riding scooters and bikes and like actually doing flips on those as well. Yeah. And my mum and dad were like, nah, man, like we've seen you on a bike and a scooter, you're going to kill yourself to get your bike. And I'm like, damn it, I'm like pissed off into crap. But then at the same time, our next door neighbor moved in, he had a go-kart. Yeah. And around about the same time, I'd also been to the Formula One Grand Prix. Okay. And for the first time ever. And I was like, wow, like sort of fell in love, just loved any.
Do you remember who won that race by any chance?
Oh, I don't.
Or do you remember any iconic moments? Was that the year where Button blew the fire out the back? I was at that one.
Oh, perhaps. I can't remember. Like I was that little, man. I could. I don't really remember. As actually, just a bit of a side story here. I'll digress for a moment.
That's all right.
there is a key thing I remember about that event, and we were leaving and it was packed as, and I just fell in love with Ferrari.
Yeah.
And I walked past the Ferrari merch stand, and there was this great big flag, and I was like, oh, I want that for my bedroom.
Yeah.
And Dad's like, no, we're going home. Please look grumpy or whatever. I was like, we walk along for a bit, and I'm like, you know what, like, screw this. Like, what's he gonna do? Like, leave me behind if I turn around? So I walked and I went and stood behind the Ferrari merch thing and waited for him to get there. And told the lady, like, oh yeah, that's a flag I'm getting. Dad's coming now. So like, Dad gets there and she's standing there. I've got the flag in my hand. She's like got the payment ready to go. And Dad's just like, oh, and then buys a flag. It was pretty expensive from memory, but I still got the flag at home.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, but that's probably the most key thing I remember about that event. But anyways, so we'll get back to how I got into that from that. Anyways, so next door neighbour moves in and he's got a go-kart and it just looked the same to me. It's got big tyres. It's, it's got like bodywork on it. I thought it was a Formula One car.
Yeah, right.
So I was like, oh, cool. Like the next door neighbour's got a Formula One car.
Yeah.
And Dad actually surprised me. He brought it like a cheap $500 go-kart from Melbourne Kart Centre and then brought it home and surprised me. So that's how I got into go-karts.
Do you remember what it looked like and the characteristics? I've asked this on a few interviews. Like, was it full retro?
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
so
sweet.
Didn't have a nose cone, so we had to get one to put on it.
Yeah.
So when I started karting was around when nose cones weren't being used, but they were just getting brought in.
Yeah.
And it was a Birrell, which is traditionally red.
Yeah.
But it had blue bodywork. And it pretty much didn't run when we got it. She's all rusted up, but we, fixed it up and got it going. And it was when I fell in love. Had a 25mm solid axle, which is obviously non-existent these days. The smallest axle is like 40mm in the juniors, or 30 in the cadets, but not solid. Yeah. I managed to bend the thing somehow one day, which I have no idea how. Yeah.
Wow. And did you go out there like with your dad just doing laps after laps to get good, or did you kind of go between the music thing and your schooling? And were you full into your racing at the start, or were you just like, that's a thing to lean back on to see if I like it and like type of thing? Do you know what I mean? Like
just a kid, I was like 7 years old. I was full send at whatever I could do. So, I was playing the music and, just sort of at home really. Yeah. And then trying to get in the go-kart as much as possible. But Dad had a business back then and he was like super snowed under and busy with that. Yeah. So we'd sort of just go karting whenever we could to start. And then, when he had a bit more free time, then we started going a little bit more. Yeah.
Can you tell me a bit more about the McLean family and how big it is? And do you have like big family Christmases? That's another thing that I normally ask on some podcasts.
It is a big family. So my dad's from New Zealand and he grew up in a family of 13. So 11 like siblings running around.
Yep.
So I've got like something like 36 cousins like over there in New Zealand.
Holy shit.
But everyone lives over there pretty much. So yeah, like we have family Christmas over here from my mum's side. So she's South African. So yeah, both parents from overseas.
Yep.
So all of our stuff over here is all South African stuff. But yeah, I get to go over to New Zealand a little bit, see family, but not as much as what I should really. To be honest, I'm just too busy. So
yeah. Do you know do you know the love story how they met? Did they tell you have they shown you like the old wedding album and
I do.
Have they told you any cringe stories?
I do know how they met.
Yeah.
So Dad was on a date and he got stood up.
Yeah.
And then he met Mum that night.
Really?
Yeah. And then here's me pops out a few years later. So
yeah, right.
Yeah,
wow.
It is a weird one. It's a pretty cool one, I guess. But they're not together now, so I suppose it wasn't for the best. But
right. Oh,
maybe
so
not the right circumstances.
Your parents are divorced, are they?
Yeah. So they separated back in 2018. Yeah.
Okay.
So what are we now? So like 5 years ago.
Yeah, right. Oh, you don't feel too left out because mine are divorced. Oh, my original parents are divorced and my stepdad's come along to help me. But that kind of explains you with your whole racing thing where obviously families do fall apart, but you can still make the racing and the sport work and even the music to get people energizing like yourself. Do you know what I mean? As just a kid.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. Like I have both mum and dad there at the racetrack or whenever mum can, all the local stuff she'll come to. She came to watch me at Townsville and then I didn't end up racing last year, so that was pretty disappointing. But I actually had so many people come up to Townsville to watch me race and they pulled the pin like a week before. So that sucked. But that's the game we're in. Like it's a lot of money to come up with. So yeah.
You've obviously still stayed in the supercar game though when you've had things fall out of budget and you've been racing and whatnot like that to keep obviously everything going. Do you know what I mean? Like you did I think a bit of thing with Charlie Bullis. Do you know what I mean? You've been still you've been still active on social media despite, obviously not racing due to budget shortfall or whatnot.
Yeah, well, exactly. So at the Townsville event, because it got pulled so last minute, I was always planned to go anyway. When obviously because I was going to race, but when I wasn't racing, I'm like, all right, I'm still going to go up. I'm going to work in the team, still just be around it. learn as much as I can, get my hands dirty, whatever else. And then in between that was doing some media commitments with Supercars. So that was pretty good. Got to do a little bit of stuff in the main game field, and then obviously covered the Super2 stuff on like Twitter and doing interviews, all that sort of thing. So yeah, it's good to cut my teeth doing that. I actually really enjoy the stuff. It's something that I'd look to do certainly after finish racing. But I have some unfinished business clearly. And hopefully a long career ahead of me. So but it's I do enjoy the stuff. Like, get to talk to people, be social, it's a bit of fun really.
You got to tell me more about your other jobs though. So you got the you obviously worked for the karting. You worked for Galvanize. Is that another job? Or?
Yeah. All right. So we'll go back to the DP thing. So pretty much I stopped working for them because I stopped getting a wage from karting and I had to tip back in. And I was earning good money at DPE, but without the racing as an extra, I wasn't earning quite enough to be able to spend on what was required for karting. So I got an offer from Energy Course. So I know the guy that, Damien Flack, he used to race Aussie racing cars with his brother Adrian.
His son's in racing too.
Yeah, Marcus. Yeah. So he races, I don't know, I think he's doing Porsche this year or something. Yeah, he's a good little driver. Anyways, he was starting up Energy Course over here. And then, I just through talking to him, because we were friends, mentioned that I was going to leave. And he's like, oh, mate, like, I'll take you. I was like, really? He's like, yeah, I'll pay you double. I'll pay for you to race still. And I'll pay you to race. And then you could be general manager during the week. Let's get this thing off the ground. So I worked there for 6 months in that role. But then it was shortly after the new year when I got that opportunity from Terry Wyhoon to hop in the Super 3. And then very quickly realized, the money that I was making at the job, whilst it was still good, was going to be a small fraction of what I needed to go racing. So I just quit any sort of work. I stopped doing my driver training. I stopped working and racing for Energy Course, and then just went full send, just networking and trying to build up my skills so I can basically poach sponsors, really. Not poach, more so get sponsors,
How do you learn, obviously fresh out of a go-kart, to learn how to drive a supercar? Because that would be quite intimidating. Unless, do you know what I mean? Like some people struggle, which is clearly seen in some racing aspects of seeing how they transition from a kart to a car, and then some just don't like the car and they go back to karts. Do you know what I mean? Like, how did you quickly adapt to that? Did you learn on the fly on the test day? Like, was there any certain way that Image Racing taught you how to drive a supercar or anything?
Yeah, so I don't want to discredit what I've achieved in that sense, but it really wasn't as hard as what it sounds. And that's purely because I didn't have any habits that I developed from other categories, not that I'm saying that other categories are a bad thing. They're clearly good. But because I never had the opportunity to go and do a Formula Ford or XL or Porsche or whatever, I didn't develop any bad habits. So basically all I did was I got some footage from a mate, from Jimmy Golding. And he was just like, look, do everything about that and you'll be fine. So I studied that like crazy for 2 weeks, rocked up and just did pretty much everything thereabouts. And we were on the pace straight away. We were on old tyres and only a few tenths off the lap record at that point. Having said that, when we did race there, that strength of field, I guess you'd call it if we're doing iRacing. The strength of field for Super 3, when it was the first Super 3 series of 2019, was really high, and we went 2 seconds under the lap record. But still, we were on the pace straight away. And I don't think it's I'm not sitting here saying I'm the best driver ever. It's just I didn't have any, predisposed habits I had to get rid of. And, if I just looked at the footage and the data and thought, all right, brake here, accelerate there, turn this much, try and do it around about that, that'll be a starting point, and I can build on it from there.
Yeah. And with your racing, do you like sprint cars or speedway around in the off season, or you're just more of a tar guy?
Yeah, I do like it, but the opportunity's got to be there, and I certainly can't allocate any funds to anything else.
No, I'm talking about do you like watching speedway?
Oh yeah, I used to go all the time as a kid, but to be honest, I don't really have any time for leisure at the moment. Other than the band stuff for me would work as a bit of leisure. I'd get to play a gig and then maybe have a couple of beers afterwards and then go home, or maybe we'll have a big one here or there after a good show. But it's I don't really have time for any of that stuff. Because of those jobs we were going to talk about before.
Oh no, we can still talk about it. Yeah, so keep going with the jobs.
All right. So at the moment, so Galvanized Insurance is I'm a business development and marketing manager for them.
Yeah. And
the best thing about that relationship is I get commission back from deals that I bring on, really, and that goes towards my racing. They also sponsor me, so that's a really good relationship. There's a business called MIR Raceline Australia. You remember MIR from the karting days, of course. So they're back in business now, and I bought the business a couple of years ago just to make a little bit of passive income. And it generated maybe about 10 or 20 grand a year that I could pump back into my racing or just use as money to be able to eat food. And I ended up selling that to one of my sponsors last year. So I'm employed to be the general manager for them now, and they're on the car as well. And then there's a new company that I got sponsored by at Sandown last year. called Tops Products Australia. It's a roof company. It's a really good product, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's like an all-in-one solution to if you need a re-roof because your roof's leaking, we can essentially just coat your roof with our products and it'll stop it leaking. It won't leak forever. We give like a 15-year warranty on the thing, and I have a commission basis with them too. So they sponsor me, and then basically my role there is business development manager in Melbourne. So we got a guy in South Australia and a guy in Sydney. Yep. And then I handle Melbourne. So
you got to tell me how you got. Obviously, you were talking about my helmet before, but I used to race Jaie Robson back in the day, and I was like, I swear that's Jaie Robson's helmet. You got to tell me how that whole weird story happened.
Yeah, so I've been like best friends with Jaie for ages since karts. Like as soon as we met, we became really good friends, and obviously he was racing and then stopped. Yeah, and that was around about the time that I was getting in. So I originally in Super 3 borrowed a helmet from Jimmy Golding, and then needed obviously a newer spec to go and run in Super 2. Yeah, and Jaie was like, "Man, I'm not racing. Use my Super 2 helmet." And I just couldn't afford to buy one. They're like $5,000 for a helmet, and then if you're gonna get paint, it's gonna be more. It's just another expense for me. It's like hard enough for me to be able to put food on the table and go racing as it is, rather than get a helmet. So I just ran like borrowed hand-me-down gear for the first 2 years until obviously I could get some free gear from MIR. Yeah. And then obviously I still borrow Jaie's helmet and his hands device. Like that's like $1,500 or $2,000 for the carbon one we have to use. So it's like a whole lot of money.
Does he come out and watch you?
Yeah, he came to where he came out to the Sandown one and watch, which is good. And he's maybe made it out to another one. Yeah. But he lives up in Queensland now. So yeah, he's like flown to a couple just to come watch. So it's really cool. Yeah.
Brooke did a bit of studying on your music career. You had some interesting questions, didn't you, Brooke?
Oh, well, I guess we could start with before you joined, like you said, Sonny'd already started it. Was there a story behind the name, the Crookeds?
It just sounded cool.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah, pretty much. Like I think they were just like partying one night. Like it was probably early hours in the morning, and they're just brainstorming, and someone was probably like, "Oh, I'm feeling a bit crooked," and then one of the boys was like, "The Crookeds."
Yeah, I love that.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, and they just ran with
clicks.
it. Yeah, I mean, like I liked it too. Like when I first heard of the band, I was like, "Oh, I've heard of that." Like it kind of sounds like something you've heard of already.
Yeah.
So it sort of just got ran with. For a while, so
that's cool.
That's where the name comes from that. Yeah,
and you have to tell us like how we've read about how like Aaron came into the band and Oscar. I think Aaron's story is particularly interesting. How you guys picked him up. Can you go into like how you convinced him to join the band?
So pretty much like when Sonny and I were trying to find a drummer originally, and we had a bunch of people that wanted to come and play. And we are just trying to pick the right person. And we had a kid at the time message at Melbourne, or our post on a Melbourne musicians page, and was like, "Yeah, I'm looking for a band." And we looked at his like Facebook, like, okay, like we'll get him. It's a funny story for him, Oscar, the drummer, actually, because on the day of it, Sonny rings me up and he's like, "Oh, I don't know, like, have you looked at his photos on Facebook?" Like, I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "I don't know about this guy, man." And I'm like, "Oh, like." Yeah, I get ya, but I feel like it would be pretty disrespectful to judge this by by his photos. You don't want to judge a book by its cover. So I was like, let's give him a crack. And so he's like, "Oh, like, we can call it off." I'm like,
hang on, what made you nervous about his photos?
I don't know. Like, I don't know. They weren't that good. Like,
were you worried he was going to party too much, or
no? Just look, I don't know. Like, he certainly looked really young.
Oh, okay.
And just among other things.
So
like I guess like you got to look the part. I'm not saying like I'm so sexy, I look the part, but like, you got to kind of look the part to be in a band. And at the time, Oscar didn't. Now he's like one of the sexiest guys ever. So it works out well. But anyway, so we got him in, and we didn't have a guitarist, so we met Aaron at the local music store, and Sonny was like, "Oh, join," and he was like, "Nah, like I'm kind of just can't be bothered." And he was a really good guitarist. We heard him play at the store, and he kept on hassling him. We ended up getting another guitarist who eventually ended up, I think we sort of ended up getting rid of him. But around the same time, Aaron was like, "All right, fine, I'll join." So just after like probably 12 months of convincing, every time we go to Sky Music down in Springvale and Melbourne, there would be like hassling Azza. And so anyways, he ended up joining. So he ended up leaving as well. So I've left now too, only recently. But Aaron left a while ago. We got a new guitarist in, Brad Viviano, who was really good. And like it was just, it tied in really well, like when Brad joined. So he was a longtime friend of both myself and Sonny. And it was just a real seamless transition to get him in the band. So it was really good.
You got to tell us some crazy like roadie stories and stuff like that, because I remember seeing during lockdown, highlights. I'd call it highlights of you guys just doing some I think I just went back on your Instagram page. You just been doing wild shit like to keep yourself entertained. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
There was what was there one that I saw on social media? There was one where they were like trying to shoot you with like beer cans or something. You had to stand on something and balance to win $100.
Yeah. All right, that's a pretty good one. I'm glad that we're keeping it PG. There's probably some stuff that I'm not going to bring up on this podcast. But yeah. So that was just a little promo video that we did for a tour that we were doing.
Yeah.
For a single, we'd release at the time. I think Never Get It. So every time we do a single, we'd pretty much do an East Coast tour. We'd like start at like Brisbane, then go Goldie, and then Newcastle, Sydney. Finish off in Melbourne. And around the same time, Sonny bought himself a gel blaster, which is actually illegal in Victoria, but I think perhaps legal in like Queensland or something.
Yeah.
So he like got it sent down from there. I thought it'd be a funny idea. Like we were trying to think of a good way that we could read out the tour dates and people actually listen.
Yeah.
It was like, all right, well, Oscar's the widest. So like, why don't we get him to try and read out the tour dates? And we blast him with this gel blaster because like the welts are going to show up the best on him. Yeah. Like Sonny's got olive skin, like I got like kind of brown skin, and Azza as well. I also had brown skin, so I was like, all right, like let's just blast Oscar with it because it'll show up straight away. Yeah. We did a little test run, and then his welt showed up in a matter of like 1.5 seconds. So we're like, all right, perfect. And so we pretty much stood him on top of a brick, and he had to try and balance on the brick, and we just blasted him with the gel blaster while he read the dates. And it actually got like a massive amount of reach. It went really well. Like every location we went to, we had a bunch of fans like talking about like, oh, we saw the video, like you blasting him with the gel blaster. Like it was really funny. But I wouldn't say it's definitely not one of the wildest stories that we've got. Like,
well, this podcast isn't PG, by the way, so you can go as deep.
I've got one. Is there ever a fan that's done something like that's really like thrown you out and you thought, what the hell is this?
Yeah, like we've had stalkers and stuff like go pretty hectic.
No way.
Yeah, like trying to catch us like outside of gigs, like just sort of following us to a little amount, like nothing crazy, but like we'd be going back to like somewhere after a show or something like that, and like we try and be discreet about it and just catch up with the bands that we're with. Yeah, and then like we've had girls like follow us back, and like we've had guys follow us back.
Yeah, right.
Of thing,
wow.
And try and like come in, and we're like, like it's not okay. You can't like follow someone. It's like pretty illegal.
Yeah.
So like,
have you had any of that crossover then into like when you're at Supercars? Are those same fans then trying to are they approaching you there because they're band fans?
No, like the band people don't come to the racing. The racing people come to the band stuff. But everyone from racing is so lovely. So so it's actually really good. So yeah, I've actually had a lot of crossover fans from racing come to the music stuff as well. Like a fair portion of the fans do. I could nearly say like 5 or 10%.
Yeah.
But everyone's awesome. Like everyone's just so lovely, and they're just really good people. So that the racing side of things, like it's good. But but just definitely had some odd experiences with the music ones. But yeah, like a funny story is actually we have a brother, or had, and obviously I'm not in the band anymore, which I'm sure we'll get to. But our brother band is a band called Wicked Things. They're based here in Sydney, which is who I've lived with in Petersham when I lived here in 2021 for a few months. We were on tour and we had a show in like Newtown or something like that. I was at the Botany View Hotel. Anyways, we had a band pull out last minute because the singer like broke his ankle or something like that.
Yeah.
And we decided like looking at pages around like different venues and just trying to find a band. Yeah. So Oscar at the time, the drummer, was like sort of running the show for us, and his message like literally everyone. And I was talking to a girl in Queensland who's a band we'd played with before, and I just mentioned like, oh, we're so stressed, like this has happened. Yeah. And she's like, oh, dude, don't worry, like message these guys, they're always down to play. Like they'll cancel whatever they're doing to play. I'm like, all right. So like we message them, and they like message back within like 30 seconds, like, yep, we'll be there. And so we're at the venue like setting up, and we're like sitting in the green room. So like in music we call like the green room. Obviously you know Brooke, but the green room is like sort of where the musos hang out. Like we've got like our drinks and food and stuff like that, and something like backstage, right? So we're chilling in the green room, and these guys, they walk up the stairs and they open the door to the green room, and they all turn to each other and they're like, whoa. And then they're like, like talking to each other. And then we're like at the same time, like doing the same thing. And they walk in, they're like, finally, a fucking band that looks like a band. And we start laughing because we're like, dude, we're just saying the same thing about you. Because like, when you're putting on a show, you got to put on a show. Like, I know like music's also about feeling your soul and being about how you feel, but like you want to kind of look all right to some aspect, right? Yeah. And we sort of at that time had a really bad run with like people just like just not. I feel like it kind of felt like disrespect to a point. Like it was kind of
not putting the effort into what they look like. Kind of like, so for me, obviously I'm like, I'm a bit of a muser, but not like Brooke. But like, as you said, like the Eagles over there or like, you know, Kiss, like what you guys were doing, you were dressing like an actual, I understand from that point.
Yeah, well, to be honest, that's just the stuff that we wear day to day. But like, you know, that is always in mind when we're going on stage. Like we want to feel ourselves, but we also kind of want to like respect probably whatever venue we're at. Like we played a few high profile venues and just had like people coming in like just not looking good, like that were playing for us. Anyway, so yeah, we saw these guys and we laughed because of that. And we sort of like hit it off straight away, really. So this band is actually 4 brothers. They're all they're all in the same band. There's only brothers in the band.
Wow,
it's really cool.
Yeah,
it's really awesome. So there's another little side story to that. Is their grandfather is Paul Hogan, so Crocodile.
Oh wow,
no bullshit.
Man.
No way.
I mean, to be honest, I don't know if I'm supposed to.
No, it's fine. It's fine because I've actually met him. It's all good.
Really? Yeah. Okay.
I'll tell you a story to that though. So that's interesting. So Paul Hogan, my parents were like, basically, it's on the harbour and they were demolishing their house, right? Anyway, and I think I was just working in the city at some point, and Mum goes to me at one point. She's like, "Oh, hey, they're filming an ad because they're basically facing the Harbour Bridge, and you know how Paul Hogan did the shrimp on the Barbie ad many times in the 80s." Yeah. Anyway, and she's like,
ruined being an Australian if you're over in America. Oh, throw a shrimp on the Barbie, like
basically. So I've come home and I'm just like, oh, whatever, and I'm just thinking I'm basically thinking it's like a brand power ad because we had like that fancy nice kitchen. So I'm like, oh, I'll just walk into my room and get changed. Anyway, Mum goes, oh, by the way, don't be too starstruck, but when you get in, you'll probably see Paul Hogan. And I'm like, that's bullshit. Like, there's no way that this dude's at our place. And sure enough, I go into the kitchen just to get a snack, and he's there, and he's like, "G'day, mate." And I'm like, dude, you're Paul Hogan. Yeah. And I was like, oh, there's this photo of me on Instagram. I'm like, I'm looking full dorky, and I've just got in my thing, and he's like, he's actually a very chill dude. But so that's so awesome,
cool, man. He did a movie like 2 years ago. He's like in his 80s. He's jumping out of a bloody plane.
Like,
oh god.
He's just a machine.
Yeah.
But Anyway.
So they're related to Paul Hogan.
That's their mum's dad.
Yeah.
Full
right.
grandpa, man.
Like, wow.
He comes over a lot. I met him like a fair few times. He's an absolute legend, man.
Yeah.
So he had just gone back home. Actually, he comes over for Christmas every year. So I think he went home like a week ago or something like that.
Yeah. Right.
But anyway, so that's they're the our brother band sort of thing. They're like nearly like my brothers. Anyway, so at the time we'd only just met. So we walk downstairs, we're watching like the first act, and there's like the singer, he's like wearing thongs like on stage, and the venue had put a really big effort into like dressing up the event for us. And he's wearing like thongs on stage, and he was like dirty from work and had like paint all over him and stuff. And then like at one stage he like kicks his shoes off, he's like playing like barefoot. And I like turned to one of the brothers, because 2 of them are twins. I turned to one of them, I'm like, man, I'm not saying I'm dressed better than this guy. I'm just saying I'm wearing shoes.
Yeah.
And like that was like sort of like the thing that kicked off our friendship. And after that, like we finished playing the show, and these guys are insane, and like they really enjoyed us. We stood on the street loading in our vans and stuff with all of our gear. And we just got chatting for a while until we look at our phones, and it's 4:30. We'd been standing on the side of the road for 4 hours chatting. We just got along that long.
4:30 a.m.?
Yeah, man. So like we stopped. We probably loaded in at 12:30, and then boom, it's 4:30 a.m. We're like, what the heck? We got to go to bed because we got a show tomorrow, and so did they. Like,
and the bromance began.
The bromance began. It was crazy, and like we've been brothers since then. So as I mentioned, like I've lived with them up here, like in their home in Belrose, like not far from here. In the Northern Beaches. Then when they moved to Petersham, like I lived with them there too. And
so you got more of a friendship and relationship in Sydney anyway. Like I thought you were generally just going to come up here for a meeting, but you actually had, like you said to me before on the phone when we were organising this, you know people all over Sydney. Like I just thought you just basically knew a few people in Sydney and we could go back home. But
yeah, no, I do know a lot of people because I've lived here really. So like these boys, they're from here, and then I met them. It was, when did I meet them? It was like the end of 2019 or start of 2020 or something like that. And then COVID hit, and that's when I moved up here for 6 months. And so I was like hanging with them 8 days a week sort of thing, just because we're like best mates,
And you've curtain raised for, I think, Thirsty Merc as well?
Yeah, so the Crookers, we played for Thirsty Merc twice last year, which is really cool. So that was sold out at the corner there in Richmond, which is like a really renowned live music venue. So we played. We didn't open for him with the main support, and then we had someone open for us. But that was awesome. Like we're good friends with those guys. Ray Thistlethwaite, the singer, and he plays like guitar, bit of keys. Like he's an incredible musician. Like there's not many people that I would say musically that I've met and sort of just been blown away by. But this guy, man, like Like he's just incredible. I've seen no one that can play keys like him, and he's just so musical and he's so awesome to hang out with. He's just a classic Aussie dude, and like he plays for some really, really big acts over in the US, like big musicians like Joe Satriani and stuff. Like he's done a bit with Joe Bonamassa, like these really good blues musicians, you know, like he's just incredible. Yeah,
you got to tell me more about like obviously the music. I'm finding the whole music industry interesting because you finish at 12, you know, this is the one that you just said then, and you're talking till 4 a.m. in the morning, but now because you've technically left, you know, the Crookheads right now, but does other bands talk to each other to get you in? Say if like you want to go back into another band, will they recruit you in or?
Yeah, pretty much. Like the music industry, it's like the motorsport industry or any like sport or anything for that matter. Like, you know, gossip spreads like wildfire, like people knew before we'd even announced it. So yeah, I've had actually 2 really good opportunities with some pretty high profile musicians. I won't say just yet. But it's some really cool stuff. But for me, like there was a bit of a restructure in the band and ownership and stuff like that going on, and it was sort of something that I, was going to have a lot less input going forward on like writing music or even just like getting profits from the band. And just with everything that's been going on in my racing career and uncertainty on what's going on this year, we just decided it's best to call it. Like I'd rather, if I'm not going to be getting as much of a benefit as what I have been the last 5 years from this band thing, then I'm going to pull the pin and spend all my time, all my hours on just making sure my racing career is solidified. So once we got some more stuff going on the next couple of months on that front, then I'll probably look to pursue either of these 2 opportunities, but both of them are really good. So
are you trying to decide now, like the focus is what Brooke was saying when we were starting on you, like, do you put all your eggs into one basket for music and then you were like, I'll just take a break with that, and then now this year, because you want to get it going, put all your eggs into Super 2 to try and get that, like, is it hard for you to like change your focus? Because I've got autism, right? So it takes me, God, I don't know, like 2-3 laps to get in the car to get good again. But if I'm doing one thing one week, I got to do it the next week to get that repetition. Or is it for you? Is it a bit of both, or you don't really know?
It's not too bad because like for me, like they're both like a career drive, and I get like asked all the time, like, oh, you got to pick one, which do you choose? I'm like, no, I don't. I can do both, and I'm gonna do both. They're like, no, but you got to pick one.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, if you're only good at one thing, it doesn't mean I can't be good at 2. You know. Yeah. So like I've always wanted to do both, but the racing requires far more resources, far more time, money, and effort. And it's, a one-man party here carrying the whole thing. So all of my time and resources has always gone into my racing. And the music stuff takes care of itself. So I think I mentioned before, like, we've got a few other band members to share the load. We got like, booking agents, people like that. So it makes it a lot easier. The band sort of take care of itself in that manner.
Yeah.
And writing music like we would do together anyway in the studio, so it comes together pretty quickly when we're at a band prac, which we do every Monday. So that was always the easy part. Yeah. The racing is the hard part. So that's all my eggs in that basket all the time.
So for like now going forward with you, because you're trying to get Super 2 off the ground, and obviously maybe Bathurst co-drive, for example, you want to obviously go down that route to be a full-time driver.
Yeah.
Are you mapping out a way to obviously like use a bit of like the music, the way you was explaining how the music industry works? Are you trying to like flip it to supercars to try and, I don't know, generate income, so to speak? Do you know what I mean? To try and get that to go to supercars. And obviously we've had guys on the couch, you've got managers and all that. Are you thinking of going down that route, or you just want to try and, like Scott Pye, for example, you know Scott.
Yeah.
He basically does it all himself.
Yeah.
So are you going to go down that route, or do you want to look for like a driver manager type of?
I kind of like being my own manager. It was definitely hard at the start, like in Super 3 when I didn't have many skills that I could bring to the table, just a bit of marketing experience pretty much when I was at TPE Car Technology.
Yeah.
So it was really hard to get started, but once I got the ball rolling and I've gotten a little bit better at it, I've got a really big network now. I like doing it all myself because at the end of the day, no one wants me to win more than me. Yeah. So, no one's going to work as hard as me on that front, obviously. Having a manager would be good to tap into some connections and that sort of thing. But to be honest, I kind of think that having a manager when you're a driver can be a bit of a wank.
Yeah.
Like I've heard team owners, like supercar team owners, say the same thing. Like, come on, like, get your shit together and do it yourself. Like, you just drive in a car and then you're training and probably having lattes and riding bikes during the week. Like, you've got time to manage yourself.
Yeah.
Roland Dane's someone that's always said that too. He's just like, drivers having managers is a wank. Yeah. I'm definitely not against having it. Like, don't get me wrong here. I'm not I'm not discrediting anyone.
No, this is your opinion. This is a podcast. We have all our own opinions.
Yeah. And not to discredit anyone that has a manager. Because like it was so hard to get the foundation of me being my own manager at the start.
Yeah.
And so many times I thought about like giving up and getting a manager.
Yeah.
But as I mentioned before, it's about finding the right person and ensuring that they're going to be putting in the right effort. Because if I step back and then probably just do a bit more training, ride more bikes and drink more lattes, then someone's got to be doing all that work. And then if it doesn't work out, then someone else is to blame. Yeah. So if anything goes wrong, then it's all my fault, really. And I kind of like it that way. Yeah.
So are you and Jimmy Golding mates since you were 6, 7, basically? Is that how that relationship happened or friendship happened to that, obviously the karting enduro? Like, you got to explain the whole Jimmy Golding thing. Because
for sure.
We tagged him in an Instagram post today.
Nice.
That's basically why. Because Herney mentioned him. Do you know what I mean? Like,
cool.
You guys both, he does DJing, you do obviously, a rock band. So how did that whole friendship happen when you were young?
Yeah, like we started in karts together. We raced at Morwell. And he was really good then, and he'd never lose. He could smoke everyone all the time. Yeah. So our dads are racing against each other in club and over 40s too. Yeah. So we're in midgets, so they're in club and over 40s.
So they were racing against each other?
Yeah. So it was like a bit of a family friendship. A friendship, like I'd say, just due to like, I never did any open meetings or anything like that until I was old enough to get a job, like 9 months really. I did a couple here and there, but we never had the money to go and do any bigger stuff. So like our friendship is probably like gone in waves over the years where like we were friends as like kids and then we like didn't see each other for years and started hanging out again like maybe like 5 years ago and then sort of like don't anymore. So it's like sort of like a bit like that. But like for us, like, or for me probably more so, like he was the one that gave me the footage and helped me with getting up to speed in the Super 3 thing. And that helped me out a lot. Like if I didn't have any footage to look at, then I probably wouldn't have gone so good straight away. And then, like I probably wouldn't have impressed Terry that much and got all the help that I got from him. Yeah. So
have you looked back on Terry Wyhoon's like archives? Because he's he would have had some cool shit in his shop.
Big time.
Like he was a NASCAR driver.
Yeah.
He was he was a NASCAR driver, and geez, he's done the NASCAR, Oscar, Privateer Cup back in the day.
Yeah, man, he's a champ. Yeah, he's done some cool things. Like he's definitely someone to look up to, and someone that I will always cherish and appreciate. Like without him, I would never have driven a supercar and I would never be doing what I'm doing now. And this is all I've ever wanted to do my whole life. Yeah. And as I mentioned before, it was something I never thought was possible. And then through someone like Terry and, a close friend of mine, Bill Caracolis, through those two get me into it. I'm, doing what I'm doing now.
And you're a part of Betty Clemenco's Erebus Academy, is that correct?
Yeah, so that was when I started racing with Terry was when they first had the Erebus partnership. So yeah, there was like a bit of an Erebus Academy thing going on. But I could only, like Terry helped me obviously starting to get racing, but I still had to come to the table financially. So I sold, I had a few cars, I sold them all and cleaned out my savings. And then managed to get a little bit of sponsorship, but only enough to get through a couple of races. So I wasn't able to race after that until I did 2020 Super 2 with Matt Charter. Yeah. Which was, they helped me out a lot as well. Like a seriously cheap deal just to get me out there. It was really good. But we had a lot of mechanical dramas. So we'd never really, I think it completed about half the laps. Because it was like we got the car last minute and just got it together.
You debuted at Bathurst, didn't you?
I did debut at Bathurst,
that's a scary place to debut, by the way. That's a big intimidating place basically for anyone.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad. Like I'd driven on the sim, and to be honest, it's pretty close.
Yeah, so I'm not a sim racer. Brooke knows this. I struggle on the sim.
Really?
I don't. I just basically I'm racing there at the 12 hour in the Formula Ford in a few weeks or in a week.
Yeah,
but for me, I don't use the sim, so I just turn up at the track and just hope to go good basically. But there's a lot of you guys who just hop on the sim and I just learnt it really quickly. But
well, to be honest, I don't ever have the time to go on the sim, and I don't even have one. I just assemble one or borrow one for the E-Series every year. Yeah. So I played a lot as a kid. So I'd race kart racing pro. Because I was in go-karts, and then I was doing skip barber on iRacing. Yeah. And then I'd stopped that pretty much maybe 2012 or 2013 when I just grew up a bit. Yeah. And then so pretty much only started again doing some laps before Bathurst in 2020. Yeah. So I just borrowed a bunch of gear and did some sim laps at my mate's house in Sydney, and then only do it every year for the E-Series and Supercars. That's it. I don't have a sim or anything like that. I just borrow one off a mate and go set up at his. So my friend I mentioned before, Bill Caracolis, I went to his house and set up I brought all my promo gear and sat it around. I was just in his garage, man, doing the E-Series because I don't have the gear. I don't really get to drive.
Is that the next door neighbour?
No. Sorry, I'm not sure if I mentioned before, but he's someone that I used to coach in go-karts. And then I got him gone up to speed, and he was just stoked with the results, and he'd come to go-kart races and watch me. And that's how he sort of got talking to Terry Wyhoon.
Yeah, right. Yeah. You got to explain to me though, with like you've won numerous like national titles and heaps of titles in go-karts. Like it's very hard to win a national title in a go-kart against guys. Were you versing Dave Serra as well back then? And
yeah, so raced against Dave a few times at the Nationals. I raced in Vegas and then like in events like the Enduro, City Melbourne, like these sort of one-offs more than the whole championships.
Yeah.
But race against him, race against James Serra, like Lee Nicolau, like all these, Jordan Nicolau for that matter, Matt Wall, like all these, like, you know, the best guys in the country. So like these are guys that I idolized like growing up and then managed to be able to like race against them. And, you know, at the same time, like I was hanging out with these guys like all the time too. So it was really cool for me to sort of be hanging out with my heroes. I was working for my hero, like Bart Price. Like I got to work with him, Shane Price as well, who was racing V8s at the time. Like it was like a really cool time for me in karting and a lot of people that I got to learn off and draw off. So yeah, a big influence for me, like when I was working at DPE, was working alongside Darren Hossack. I pretty much owe everything I know to him and Bart Price.
Yeah.
I'd say like a lot of...
Because Hossack's an old supercar driver too himself.
Yeah. Hossack raced, so probably... Yeah, so he was with GRM and probably most notably like
the Wins
Brett
car
Gibson as well. So like, yeah, he was really good as well. And yeah, just sort of, you know, he was someone that never came from money either. Yeah. So it was hard for him to secure the right seat. He had a deal sorted and then someone pretty much just came in and bought it from under him for, I can't remember, it was like a really top team.
Yeah.
So that sort of really ended his career in that sense. But yeah, he raced like sports sedans after that and has dominated all the time. Like he'd race against like Ricciardello. It was like him and Ricciardello battling for the win all the time, which is pretty cool. And Dean Randall like here and there, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, like to have those people around me in my most early days in motorsport, well, in go-karting for that sense, like they just shaped myself completely and learned all these skills. Like I'd say like a lot of the reason why I've been able to be fast in the supercar straight away as well is like a lot of the engineering background and setup experience from when I was racing karts, because we were developing karts like flat out all the time. And I know people like, oh, go-kart's different than supercar, but it's got pedals and it's got four wheels and it's got an engine. It's actually quite a lot similar in the sense that like you develop your butt to feel from what's under you. You know what I mean? And it's made that really easy for me, having such a dense pedigree doing that stuff back when I was karting.
Yeah. Would you guys like develop a kart that wouldn't make the market just to see if it would work? Like, would you go out to the Todd Road? Yeah. Can you tell me a bit more about that? Because I've seen back in my day, like Dave Sear and other guys, obviously now you basically Arrow is competing against all the European makes, so they've got to keep up that competitiveness. Like, when you were working for Bart, did you guys have to make a formula for it to work? Do you know what I mean? To sell a card?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the biggest thing was win on Sunday, sell on Monday.
Yeah.
So top priority was just win the bloody race. Yeah. So we'd have karts though that would work well at some tracks and not at others, and not that we'd ever have special karts. To be honest, any of the race team karts, if they weren't prototype models, it was a model that, you know, might have been dropped off the bench or it might have got ran into with a forklift. Bart Price raced a go-kart, they nicknamed forklift one time. It got crashed into the tines, like damaged the heck out of it. So they chopped a bit out, welded a new bit in. And that's just what Bart raced, because Drew Price, who owned Arrow Karts at the time, he's like, "It's just my son, that's what it run." Everyone's like, "Oh, you guys get special karts." Like, no, it's like the crappest karts, because like you got to save money, right?
Yeah.
But the prototype stuff, like sometimes we would have an advantage because it would work well at some tracks. Like when we're doing the X5 development, we had a really soft go-kart that worked really well in KA3, so like the common light back then, the 100cc stuff, and would work really well on the 125 until it got hot, and then it wouldn't go as well. But that for me, like we were at Geelong, it was the first race event we had there in that kart, and it was like a 33-second lap time, and there were practice sessions where I was fastest by like half a second, which is just like ridiculous. Like no one, no matter how good they are at a national level, should be quicker by that amount, especially on a 33-second track.
Yeah.
And that for us worked really well, pretty much like every track, but we had to get out of it pretty quickly because we wanted to like develop one kart that would work across the board for all of the categories, and we pretty quickly established it wasn't going to work well in the 125 stuff, so we had to pull the pin on that. So I did like one race event in that. It was a shame. It was my favorite go-kart. It was the best, but I wasn't allowed to use it. Like, it's, you know, like we got to develop this other one. So
you got to tell, we obviously Brooke and I are from Sydney, and Brooks, I think you had a sticker or artwork in Frankie's Pizza.
I thought you were gonna. That's where I thought this was going. Yeah, because you performed there when it when the
Yeah.
last night was it?
We did it last night. We did one of the last few shows.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I know the owners of Frankie's, like they're good friends, and yeah, like we've played there so many times. Like
It's like the iconic venue down there. Yeah.
iconic venue, and it's closed now, and it just breaks my heart. Like I love that place, man. Like you get some funny stories from there, which I'm not sure if I'll.
Oh, you can say some of them.
We used to go there a lot. We have art exhibitions down in the basement, like absolutely just fry to death in summer, and then come back up. And there was just it was always had great music and everything there. Yeah.
I will say like a little funny one from there. It's not really related to us, but any of the staff members, if they met somebody that they quite liked throughout the night, there was like an unwritten / potentially written rule in your staff contract that you could call in a code pink. And a code pink was there was a pink like slippery when wet or like do not enter sign that they'd put at the front of the toilets and block it out, and then they could use this for extracurricicular activities. So
There we go. I did not know that.
So code pink's a real funny one, and then I suppose now that they're closed, I could probably mention that. But it was like a bit of a hush one before.
Wow, that's actually really really cool.
That's hilarious.
It is cool. It is cool.
Oh, come on, you've got more about Frankie's. I want to know a bit more.
Oh, we do. There's just stuff that I could probably shouldn't mention.
Did you guys ever have to use the basement as the green room?
So that's a good one though. So
every
time we'd play a gig there, because we're good friends with Jordo, one of the owners, we'd get to have the green room, which is called the fun room, really down there. The fun room would be designated to us, and they have like a big bathtub like filled with ice and all this alcohol, and then we could just sort of pick whatever we want. So the last time we played there, Emma, the manager at the time, she like saw us play and she hadn't seen us before, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, you guys are like fucking insane!" Like, you know what? Open bar tab for the night. I'm talking unlimited. I'm like, really? She's like, unlimited. She's like, let's go. I'm like, all right, we'll do this. And like, I felt really bad after the night. We didn't realize how excited we got, but we spent like nearly $2,000 on the bar because like we were like just getting shots. Everyone like, oh, we have an open bar tab, just forgetting, and it was like. Yeah, I felt real bad afterwards, but just forgetting that. We're just like ordering for everyone. Like I'm talking, we're ordering like 20, 30 shots at a time, and it was like it was just crazy. But
is this before their performance? Or
no way, no. Like we're serious about the stuff. We want to play a good show, so we always had a 2-drink rule. So we'd never have any more than 2 drinks before a show.
Okay,
and then after the show, like whatever, like just go nuts as long as if they've got a show the next day, like you got to be tame-ish. You go hard as long as you're gonna be okay. But yeah, like partying like crazy is always a little bit hard. If I I might have had a show like a week before a race, and I always like wouldn't really drink in the vicinity of a race like around a couple of weeks and sort of just like be fit. But to be honest, like I never really had that many double ups, so it was okay. Like I'm only in Super 2, like it's only 6 races a year. And I haven't like I've done another couple of things like Utes or whatever else. But never.
How was your Utes experience?
It was sick. Like I really enjoyed it. It was something that came together like really last minute.
The reason I'm asking this is it gets controversial on the internet, right? Some people hate it, some people love it.
Yeah, it does. But the thing that people don't realize about now, it's higher horsepower and they weigh less than what the old V8 Utes did. Yeah. Which you'd think, oh, they're so big, they weigh more, and how could they have more power? Like the LS3, man, she goes. Like it's fast. Like when we race at SMP, we're getting up to like 235 Ks an hour. Like the Supercars only doing like 270.
Yeah, right.
It was really cool. Like
you had a wicked paint scheme on that thing too. It was like fluoro yellow and everything. Yeah.
So we had a company called Manfilter who were from Journey. There's a company called Man and Hummel. They do a heap of different things, but one of their biggest products is called Manfilter. Yeah. And I'd just been talking with Con Vertis, who was perhaps like the sales manager at the time. He doesn't work there anymore. But I was talking to him about doing something with Super 2 for a while. And this opportunity came about. Like I wanted to do some laps at SMP because everywhere I go is pretty much the first time I've ever been, because I pretty much only done go-karts before this. And I was like, righto, like let's get serious. I want to do some driving at SMP. I was going to do some test days. And then Luke Cedars, I think, reached out and was like, oh, do you want to have a crack? I was just like, yeah, absolutely. It was like a really good deal. So I really appreciate like what they did there for me, and it made me able to have a really cheap price for the sponsor and basically get the ball rolling with them. Yeah. So I called him, like had Luke called me, Luke Cedars, and then I was like, oh, that sounds good. Called the sponsor and then called Luke back. I was like, yeah, we're on. And I'm talking like this was like a 25-minute process. Yeah, right. This drive came together. I'm like, righto, like I'm going to Sydney.
This is during COVID, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was during COVID. So like I managed to get across the border on a permit. Yeah. And then, so this is in 2021. Yeah. And then I did, a couple races in the Ute in the end before, doing the Super 2
Is that where you became friends with Ryal Harris?
Oh yeah, so no, we got along really well. Like I'd known Ryal for a while.
Yeah,
so
okay.
I think potentially just from meeting at race events or the go-kart sort of stuff. Like yeah, we're like all mates. Like we'd gone out together a few times. Like it was good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I had some really good races with him in the Utes actually. Like good door to door.
Oh,
like,
dude, they were really.
It was
fucking cool
good.
to watch.
Yeah. It was real good fun. So like we were battling. There was like me, him, and Borg. You'd like battling for the win. Like hectically in one race, and then like Cricky ended up catching like up and then joining that battle as well.
Yeah.
So it was like a 4-man dog fight, which was like really cool.
Yeah.
So Ryal and Cricky had a pretty big blow up after that dog fight.
Oh, that's right. Ryal's pretty animated as a driver.
Yeah,
like
it's good though.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
That's what we said. It brings personality back to the
absolutely.
field.
Yeah, man. There's just too many wet blankets in motorsport or sport these days. Like
Yeah. So you weren't offended by his comments after a Super 2 race or something? Like he had a go. Both of you two had shots at each other. So was that just heat of the moment type of stuff?
Yeah, like I didn't really say like too much about him, like on a negative like sense, I'd say. But I was more so just like like. Because it was like calling me a girl and stuff. Like that's all fine. Like I love women. So you're not going to offend me. Like I suppose it's not looking bad on me if you're calling me a girl, man. Like it's not looking bad on me. Like it's the industry. The age that we're at now. Like people are probably going to get offended by what you're saying, not by the way I look. Yeah, I got long hair and I wear pretty shit, but like I like wearing nice stuff, man. Like
So you weren't offended by that stuff at all?
It's fine. Like call me whatever. Like I never really get fazed by anyone's comments. Like it's like everyone's running their own race in life. They're running their own battle and doing their own things. Like if you take people's comments on board too many times, like it's probably going to beat up your soul a fair bit. Like
between how you've had the experience being in a band and having to deal with like social media in the public, and now you're in you've been in the racing and continued to be. Do you find that you've had to cop any more, let's say the trolls or that sort of thing in the band more than the supercars, or has it been a mix of what you've had to learn to deal with?
So yeah, like I've never really copped anything bad. In terms of like I've mentioned before, obviously we had some weird stuff happen in music, but I've never ever like copped anything with positive comments on the music side of things. But I'd say probably because the age demographic of motorsport fans at the moment in Australia, like I also get a lot of people saying the same thing, like I look like a girl, like I'll get a haircut, like all that sort of stuff. But a lot of people stick up for not just me. I'm sure if anybody got those comments, like. People are pretty nice these days. Someone that I think probably got that movement going a fair bit is someone like Chaz Mostert, who was like, really preaching the no hate, no social hate sort of thing. And people have gotten around that. Like Chaz is such a personality, such a great guy that he's someone that is perfect to lead the way in that sense.
Yep.
And like there was like a few articles went out the other day, a lot of positive comments, but then there was like always a few battlers like, oh yeah, like maybe just get a haircut or something or whatever else. And it's just like then people like were like roasting these people back though, which is like pretty cool. Like to be honest, I never really had the time to read the comments, but
that's actually good. That would be a good thing though. Do you know what I mean? Because you're so busy anyway. It's actually not good to look at social media. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, you're 100% right. It's purely because I'm too busy, but I do sometimes read the comments because my mum will be like, oh, this is a lovely comment here. Or I'll be like, wow, that's a mean comment. How could they say that? So I'm like, oh, I better have a look. And then if I'm looking at them, I'll look at them all,
Yeah.
I'll read all the comments on my personal stuff, but on news articles, it's like pretty hard to keep up because you've got, 4 massive news agencies in motorsport in Australia, let alone any of the other sites, posting stuff all the time. Like, hey, how are you going to keep up?
But you wouldn't want to be caught in that vortex anyway, because those people who are commenting, it's just coming from I don't want to sound bad, but they're people just doing nothing, and they're generally and they're just out to troll people and that. So that's something you wouldn't want to be listening to on that sort of thing, Positive's good, but the negative is something you just have to. Do you learn to just like throw it away and just ignore what you're different things that you've seen?
Yeah, I guess I don't know why, but I've just never, as I mentioned before, like never really been fazed by anyone's comments or anything like that. Like,
that's what I'm amazed
people
by
have
you,
an
man.
agenda, like when they're saying something, and it's for, the reason, it might be beyond you. You don't know why. And whatever that agenda is relevant to me. Like, it's not going to stop me from doing what I want to do or making me feel how I want to feel. You know what I mean? So it's
So we'll go to the supercars thing because you're obviously trying to get your Super 2 campaign underway and whatnot. And there's guys like there's yourself, Jaie Robson, Joey Mawson. They're all trying to get a seat in Super 2.
Yeah.
But I was actually for the Super 3, Super 2 cars now for Super 2 because I could see that coming. Do you know what I mean? With the whole collectors thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's ridiculous. You've got, I think Michael Anderson's got a car. I think, as you said, Ammon Charter's pretty adamant, and he loves his supercars with his son.
Yeah.
Is there an opportunity there for you to race with him again, or?
Yeah, he's just one of the many parties I've been talking to as well, trying to get a seat as well. So yeah, it was difficult because when we started Super 2 in 2021, we had some really good results. Like obviously I started in 2020.
Yeah.
I didn't do a season, just the one race with Charter.
Yeah.
I was like 3.5 seconds off a lap. Like, to be honest, I was like, oh, like, what do you expect? Like, you threw yourself in the deep end here. Like, you're not good enough. But because it was hard because we just built that car so quickly and got it running because we had so many mechanical problems. Like, it's probably like that hindering pace as well as probably my confidence in the car, being probably scared of it breaking down in my first race in Super 2, or whatever. I don't know. Like, I never normally get scared behind the wheel, but I'm just like speculating here. All I know is I was like 3.5 seconds off the pace. I didn't drive a thing, not even a go-kart. And then I rocked up to the first day with Egglestone and we're like on the pace straight away.
Yeah.
And then I only did 20 laps before we went to Bathurst at round 1.
Yeah.
Because so we didn't have enough money to start testing just yet.
Yeah.
And then like the money I went to the test day and I didn't have enough to do the deposit. And the money came through. So like went to the bank.
Yeah.
And then because I didn't want to risk it not getting paid straight away if I transferred, I went and like withdrew like 20 grand from the bank in Winton and in Benalla and then took it to the track. I was like, let's go. So I got to start like halfway through the day. That went well. Yeah. And then we rocked up to Bathurst and like first session, we were like P1 the whole session and then we were P2.
Yeah.
And then we just sat in the top 5 like all weekend. And I was like, oh, like I actually can do this. And then yeah, like we just sat in the top 5 pretty much all year. Wrapped up 5th in the championship. It was a good year. Like we won the Rookie of the Year. There was a Dunlop Driver Award.
You did that all without no testing, yeah? Basically, that
so
season.
we did do testing after round 1. So like I did 20 laps for round 1. Yeah. And then like everything I did at round 1 was with no testing. Yeah. And then before round 2 I did a day. Yeah. And then before round 3 I did a day. Yeah. But yeah, it was a great year. Like we won the Rookie of the Year, the Mike Kable Young Gun Award, which was a really special one. Like a lot of really incredible names have won that. So that was really just a special moment for myself to be added to that list. And there was a Dunlop Driver Award we'd won. Obviously we did Rookie of the Round like 3 in a row. I think like maybe 4 out of 5 of the rounds because we dropped around in 2021. Yeah. So we had a lot of momentum coming into 2022, like last year, and we were fast. Like the first practice of the year, like we were P1, so we top practice at the first round. Then we just had just a bit of an unlucky run. Like I had trouble getting into gear at the start of the race, and then I dropped back to last. Came back through to like 10th, and then I was running 5th in the 4th in the second race, and then I got a hit from behind from Jay Hansen, which sent me like wide, and I dropped back to like that 12th sort of area where Ryal was running. Yeah, and then he like tried to hold around the outside of me into whatever corner that is. I'm going to call it like turn 4 or 5, right? Yeah. But it was like slippery conditions, so like we never like made contact, but like I ran him out of road. The intention was like I was like past him. The intention was to like righto. I've like got a fair overlap. I'm barreling across to like block him so he can't pass me in his next corner because like Ryal's so good at passing, he's always going to get in there. So I was like, right, I'm going to barrel across to block him. But he's like gassed it halfway around the corner and ended up next to me. But like, I'm looking at the corner. Yeah. So then like you look at the footage and I was like, it looks so terrible. Like it's ran out of road. And like, to be honest, like I did apologize straight away, but like he's like obviously angry, all that sort of stuff. Yeah. It was a bit of a funny one. Like we talk now, it was all good. Yeah. But yeah, anyway, so we had that. Which we did end up getting a penalty for. So it's sort of like it was hard to go into round 2, but then round 2 we top practice again at the start. We're like 4th in quali after a big mistake at the last corner, like hit the curb. It was probably looked like we could pole it. And then we got through to 2nd in the race and we were catching Matt Payne and then blew a bloody header and dropped a cylinder. And then this is like on lap 6, man. So I had to like hang on for the rest of the race and like I dropped back to 4th and finished there in the end. But another good one. The pace was good. And then where did we do? Round 3 of Townsville, didn't make it. Yeah. Due to budget. Then we're back for Sandown. That was had a crash there, which sucked. Yeah,
that was really that was a wild weekend, that one.
Yeah, man. Like we were running, I think like somewhere in like 6th or 7th in that second race. Because I'd put it off in quali, like we were purple. I think we were sitting first at the time, and then I ran off at Dandenong Road. I hit a puddle and ran wide. Yeah. And once you do that, they take you fastest lap. So to start like last, I think you got up to like 6th or 7th. Yeah. And then so Jason Gomersall had a big off under safety car conditions. Pretty much when we're, as I mentioned, under safety car. Yeah. So we got to get going, and no one saw as we're coming around that there was mud except for Tony Delberto, who was leading. So he saw the mud all over the track, and he's just like completely shortcutted because he's like, well, if I hit that, I'm going to be in the fence. Yeah. But then whoever was in P2 like did not have any chance of seeing that. So they hit it. Then we all start spinning.
Yeah.
Pretty much 3 cars end up in the barrier, and I'm a 4th one to go in. And yeah, it was pretty tough. Because yeah, like I mean, to be honest, like it would have been good to see a red flag because that Gomersall car was in the fence waiting there for us all to arrive with mud all over the track before it. Just call the race, man. We don't need to have a 1-lap dash. Like I'd rather that than the 60, 70 grand damage bill that I got.
Yeah.
So, but these people are making the calls like in the spur of the moment. Like, everyone's doing their best. But yeah, that was a tough round. Yeah. Then we come back to Bathurst and, it was good. Like we were P1 in practice there. And then obviously the first race got called off because of the weather. And the second one got called off. So it was just, it's hard. Like we're so fast all year. We just never really got to capitalize on that pace because we missed 2 rounds. But it was good, like little stat.
In your opinion, though, is there any way that they could fix Super 2/3? Like even for like, somehow manage to drop the prices down? Because I've had other guys and girls come on the podcast saying, racing's got to work itself out where they've got to maybe drop the price to gain more entries. Do you know what I mean? Like there's all these type of.
Well, they just can't drop the price. Like it's lower now than it was years ago. There was like talks of it being over $1 million like a few years ago. Now it's like a lot less than that, but it's still like heaps, like for a guy like myself. But unfortunately now Super 3 being with the newer generation cars, it's so expensive. It's like the same price as Super 2. It's like maybe just a little bit cheaper, like 50 grand cheaper for the year.
Yeah.
So those Super 3 cars, the Project Blueprints, were cheap to maintain. So that was a positive about it. Like when I did Super 3 with Terry Wyhoom, the contract price was like less than half of what it cost me to do Egglestone in Super 2. And that was an extremely good deal as it was.
Yeah. So you don't reckon there's any way that they could basically fix supercars in your opinion at all?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was tough. Like in Super 2, all these teams had to buy these new cars for this year that are filtered down from main game, and these cars are costing the same or more than what it costs to get a Gen 3 car. The only benefit to buying these old cars is that the main game teams get to make a little bit of money. It really doesn't work out well for any of the Super 2 teams. We should have just gone Gen 3.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So you reckon you would have, to where they are, Gen 3?
Absolutely. But the thing is like, we've seen how the deadline's been going with Gen 3.
Yeah.
It really wasn't going to be possible, but if everything in a perfect circumstance in a perfect world had it been going well, then
Do you reckon now though can be basically a Band-Aid in a way? Like what you're saying could actually work, right? But obviously they're struggling for parts and struggling for car, everything to do with Gen 3 is basically struggling. So they're basically trying to race to finish it. But do you reckon they could basically use the Super 2, Super 3 thing now as a Band-Aid until they start manufacturing more cars to make it work?
Absolutely. Well, that's what it's doing really.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that was never the plan from the last couple of years, really. And 2 years ago, the deadlines were looking fine for Gen 3. Yeah. So yeah, it is a shame, but like I suppose it's the way it's got to run. Yeah. It makes it easier for these main game teams to make a little bit of money as well. The only thing that's concerning is like there's a lot of cars out there that just have no pedigree that like quite frankly suck in terms of history. Yeah. And like these teams are gonna have to try and sell these,
Oh, so you guys you guys yourself, the drivers, keep an eye on which cars are not that great. But you preferred better equipment basically when you're out there.
Yeah, to be honest, like I don't know if that many people do look into it. I know if like a few people like I've spoken to that drive, like some people do as well. Yeah. Like a really good site for that is like V8 Sleuth. They've got like the whole like history of like every car and where it's been and its results. And plus you can just go look it up on, Supercars yourself. But there's a lot of cars that haven't really achieved much with now these teams have bought, which if in 2 years when they go to the Gen 3 and Super 2 or whatever that's going to be, like who's going to buy that car? So now it's Super 2 teams left with that because then there's no reason for him to get filtered down anywhere else. You know what I mean? So perhaps a Super 3, but then it's like all it's doing is driving the price up to Super 3 by a bit too because we're running like carbon bonnets in the Gen 2 cars, like all these sorts of things. So it's like you have a crash and it's expensive. Man.
Would you run Super 3 this year or not? Would some of you guys would or not? Because it could make Super 3 more competitive. Do you know what I mean? Like because there's not enough. It's technically Super 2 is still there, but Super 3 could potentially still become a competitive class within itself. Do you know what I mean?
For sure. Like the Nissans, like, to get a hands on a Nissan and run around in that could be pretty good. Yeah. Because the parity in the Nissan was done against the Mustang and the ZB. So it was always a little bit too quick for Super 2. At certain tracks it would really show. Yeah. But that'd be cool to run in Super 3 or any car for that matter. Like I really enjoy the AAA gear, which I've been using. Yeah. But at the end of the day, like it's going to cost the same money as Super 2. Like these days, it's the same price now that the previous cars that we use in Super 2 are filtered down. The price is the same. Everything's the same to pretty much run. The Gen 2 cars are just like a little bit more expensive. Yeah. So it's like, I don't know. Not really
Yeah.
I don't know if I would. Yeah.
Is Craig Dontis though? You were saying about your SuperUtes though. He obviously helps you with he's helped you with sponsors and stuff like that. But he's influential with the whole Supercars paddock, isn't he? Like he keeps guys on the grid.
Yeah, man, he's good. He helps out a few people. So like Cam Cricky helps a fair bit. I'm not sure who else. There's like maybe like someone called like Elliot Barber. I don't know what he runs, but I remember Craig saying that he helps him. And then like there's so one of the Supercars partners is Shaw, which they do like microphones, like headphones, that sort of stuff. He got me doing the E-Series for him. It was a great time, obviously, because I'm a musician. And like I just developed that partnership to then applying it to my real life racing. And that worked out really well. So it's a good one because, as I said, like that translated through to my band and it was something that I could do simultaneously no matter what in my life I was doing. So that's, as I said, that's something that Donis gave me the foundation for. So, I'll forever be grateful for that.
Yeah. Do you have a partner or anything?
Yeah, I do.
You do?
Yeah.
You do have a partner?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, we've been together for like 7 years, man.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, long time.
Well, how did you guys meet?
We met at, like last year's school. Yeah, we met at last year's school. So...
Oh, you've been together since like high school sweethearts?
Since afterwards, yes. So pretty much we...
Oh, so not at high school, just after?
No, so we met at high school. And then right at the end, like her parents have like a property up in Noosa. And like when I was a kid, like I used to party a bit and go to like house parties. And my friends were like, oh, come to schoolies. I'm like, no, I've done plenty of partying. I don't want to do that. Like,
so you never went to schoolies?
Well, I wasn't going to go to schoolies. And then all my friends like, look, my girlfriend's name's Molly. Yeah. She's like, oh, yeah, she's like, oh, yeah, having people at my place in Noosa, like, come along. I was like, no, I can't be bothered. But then all my best mates are going. They're like, oh, yeah, look, like, let's get you there. Like, come on, like, hassle me. And I'm like, all right, fine, whatever. So I ended up going, and that's like where we sort of hit it off. And then, like, we've been together since then. So,
cool. Is she creative like you were, or in terms of the music side, or is she totally different?
It's totally different. She's a school teacher, man. Like,
cool.
Really?
Yeah. She's like destined to be a school teacher. She's one of those people. Yeah. So it's like the perfect career for her. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And does she? I know you guys don't live together. You do? Or you don't?
Yeah, we do. So we live at our parents' house. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And does she come home and tell you like cool teaching stuff and stuff like that?
Yeah, just heaps of like stories from kids and stuff. She's a primary teacher, so she like has to deal with like a lot of like
all that stuff. But I was going to ask though, with that stuff, how she would obviously get a buzz from teaching. Do you get more of a buzz out of performing on stage or racing a car? Like, is it the same or is it like how can you compare? Do you get more of a heart rate buzz from like coming on stage and that, or is a supercar worth it basically?
Well, there's adrenaline in both. Yeah, and I love both so much, but like, I don't know, your life's on the line when you're racing. So like I'd say probably racing. And because so much effort goes into the racing, there's so much reward that I get out of the racing as well. Yeah. Like as I mentioned, like I love both so much. But at the end of the day, like I'd say I probably experience more adrenaline and more reward in that sense because of how much I've got to put into it.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Are you using the music while you're not like performing and that and in bands at the moment? Do you go home after like everything you're doing now and use that sort of thing to just like relax and chill out? Do you still like do you still play the guitar or write music?
Yeah, so I always would do that, but to be honest, like times are just that crazy at the moment where I just haven't had the time to. That was like the whole part of me just taking a step back from the band. Yep. Now that it's like less of my own operation, is to focus all my time on a Super 2 career. Because it was only like late last year, like in December, like the week before Christmas, I found out that I wasn't going to be racing at Egglestone anymore. Yeah. Which is like a bit different to the plans that we'd made up. Yeah. And the thing that was tough is I'd had opportunities from like a couple like main series teams, like really good deals to race in Super 2 for them. Yeah. And which like obviously we just didn't end up doing because we were going to race at Egglestone. And we'd organised, like, I'm not going to go into details too much, but it was a really good campaign to run. And we only found out, like, really late in the piece that this wasn't going to go ahead. And, it was, like, for them, like, understandable completely because, like, I missed out on 2 rounds last year and they're a business. Like, it's pretty hard to have uncertainty around your driver. So, like, whilst this year is looking so good for me budget-wise for the first time ever, obviously, like, how could you trust that when, like, I've missed a couple of rounds for him? Yeah. So, like, we only found out pretty late, and obviously all the deals done in, like, October, November, the previous year. So, that's why it's been so hard to find a seat and why I'm just, like, full send, allocating literally every minute of my day trying to either work to make the money for it and spending any spare time obviously trying to organise deals and stuff like that.
You said you might do S5000 as a backup. Is that true?
Yeah, it's a good backup. So I did a test with Versa Motorsport back at the Bend in November last year. And that went really well. Like it was a pretty incredible experience. They're really cool cars. I've never done open wheelers because obviously I've done the tin top stuff. But yeah, it went really well, real quick, and the team, really want to have me back. So we've been chatting to them. There's we've kept all options open as to what I'm going to do. So like worst comes to worst, I think I'll probably do a few rounds of Super 2 and then, do the whole S5000 championship, which I say worst comes to worst. It's actually like a really good setup, but I really want to win the Super 2 series. And like last year we demonstrated so much pace. Like we did 4 races and were the fastest in like practice at like 3 of those events, which was the most out of anyone that year, even though we were 2 rounds down. And like I really want to apply that, to a whole campaign, especially now, like I'll probably be one of the most experienced in the field as well. So there's a lot of new blood coming in, and all the guys that were around my pace have moved up. Like, Zach Best is sort of taking a step back. Matt Payne's up, Cam Hill's up, Declan Fraser's up. So it's like, it's a real good year. There's like a lot of guys also missing out this year too, which sucks. So, who knows, maybe I'll be one of those guys. But I'm doing everything I can to make sure that I'm not. But, things don't always work out. So.
Cool.
Do you feel like there's like how you said you came in from karts, then you had sort of no testing, went into supercars. So did you ever feel then, and compared to now, once you've won the Kable award, that the expectations have changed for you, or have they gotten do you feel like you're putting more on yourself, or there's more external, or how have you found that journey so far?
I wouldn't say that the award changed anything. What changed my, I guess my goals for the year when I first came in 2021 was when we just popped it on the front row, and like my first outing with Egglestone, I was like, oh man, I'm going to win this thing. Like, I'm just going to win the series. Like, how good is this? Like, I'm so fast straight away. But then, by the next round, it was like a rude awakening. Like, man, you got so much development to do. So that was probably the biggest thing that like realigned my goals. Cause at the start of that, I was like, oh yeah, if I can just dip in the top 10, that's going to be good. But then we're like racing like in the top 5 straight away. And I wouldn't say that like the award really changed any of that, because like we were sort of already in that top bunch. So like the goal for the following year, whether I won that award or not, was to try and win the series or get as close to it as possible. And obviously we missed out on a couple of rounds.
Does that award though equate to both Supercars and Super 2? Like,
it does.
How's it actually work?
Yeah, so that award gets shared between Supercars, the main game, and in Super 2. And it's just the best like rookie between both. It's not like.
It's like a driver rating system in a way?
Kinda. There's like a little bit of back-end system, but it's also voted by like a lot of the Supercars crew in the media and Motorsport Australia, like officials, all that sort of stuff. So I think it's sort of whoever gets the most votes gets a win. So so that was cool. So that's why like it's also a special one, because it's like not just performance-based. It's also like people and how they're looking into how you're going, and there's like it's quite subjective in that manner. So like if people think you should win, like I think it's quite special. So I probably enjoyed that one more than winning the Rookie of the Year, really, because that one was somewhat statistical, but more so just like people seeing things behind the scenes as well, and probably recognizing hard work as well. So it was like, it was good.
How'd the relationship with Boost come about?
That's a funny one. So
because Peter Adderton is, all we can say is just he's bloody vocal about motorsport.
It's great. It's another opinion which we need.
Yeah.
Pete's great, man. Like, he's good. He says whatever has to be said, which is good. So as I mentioned earlier, a lot of people in motorsport that just like, or any sport for that matter, a lot of industries that try and just like say what's politically correct, which is like fair. You want to do it as much as possible. But then people aren't saying their opinions, and like, you got to say your opinion. So anyways, like I rock up to my first like full season of like start with Egglestone. And I just wearing like my Egglestone gear, but then I'm wearing like these Cuban Hill boots, like sort of stuff, like same as what I'm wearing now actually. And we rock up to the race. I'm walking around the pits in that. We do practice, and like, we pop it on the front row straight away. And then it's like the Saturday morning after we've done the practice, I'm just like walking to get a coffee. And then I'm just standing there, and then this guy comes up. He's like, "Are you Matt McLean?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Jason Haynes, Boost Mobile. How you going? We want to sponsor you." I'm like, yeah. No worries. He's like, "Are you busy?" I'm like, just get my coffee, but I can sack it. Like, let's go chat. He's like, "No, I'll stand with you, wait for your coffee. Let's get that, and then I'll go introduce you to the team, whatever." So I went and I met Pete, all that sort of stuff. Which later I found out that Pete just heard about me rocking around the pits in what people were calling cowboy boots. Because people, I suppose, don't really wear that sort of stuff around the pits. So people was like, "Oh, it's a cowboy boot, whatever." So like Pete heard about me wearing my cowboy boots and was like, "Jason, go and get that guy. Like he's fast, and then he's wearing different stuff. Like, go and get him." So like that came about straight away. And in my first chat with Jason, he's like, "Man, the biggest thing about this partnership is we're sponsoring you because you're different. You got your long hair, you're wearing your cool stuff, and like, you're fast as well. The biggest thing is that you're you." He's like, the one condition on this partnership is that you do whatever you want and say whatever you want at all times. He's like, we don't want you to become like everyone else and be like a molded driver. Like, it's like,
that is the best thing you want to hear from a sponsor.
It was the best thing to hear from a sponsor, but the best advice I've ever got.
Yes,
It was so good. Like, it really, I would say, shaped the way that I went about my career. Like, I probably would have done just like what a lot of drivers do. Don't get me wrong. Like, there's plenty of personalities going around in Supercars, but then there's also plenty of non-personalities as well. So yeah, that was a really good bit of advice, and just a good little story, I suppose, on how I got going with Boost. But it's a brand that I'm really passionate about. We're pretty aligned with, I guess, how we treat our campaigns and like content and stuff like that. Like, we just sort of like.
Have you done any ads for Boost or anything? Like any because they're obviously an out there brand themselves. Like, have you done any like rock ads or type of things like that, or any?
Not really rock ads, but like I did. So I've done like a couple photo shoots for them, and like I'd always create like for all of my sponsors, they'd get like a set amount of content every day at an event. So I employ one of my friends who I basically trained to, service me at race events. He'd come along with me and he'd do all my content sort of stuff. He can just film me doing all my videos and make individual ones for each of my sponsors. And he'd do like, a bit of like motion graphics, put it over the top at the end. So then each of the videos tailored to whether it's your logo being featured on the car, as well as a bit of like graphics at the end. Anyway, so yeah, it's the best thing that like we've done with Boost is just create a lot of content. So the first thing we did was the photo shoots, and then they use that just for a little bit of ads and stuff. And then after that, it's just all the content that we create for them.
What's your take on Pete trying to like start a V8 supercar team? Because potentially, if he was allowed in, because Andretti's struggling in Formula One, right?
Yeah.
If he was allowed in the door, that could open the door for you. I don't know. There's a heap of rostered driver that he wants. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like, it's kind of actually, in a way, stopping the system of development. Do you know what I mean? Like you said before with the Super 2 guys, Zach Best and other guys, they're just out of a drive technically. Do you know what I mean? If he had a team and Charter had a team, there'd be 2 more or technically 4 more spots if they allowed that many wrecks to race. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Like, I guess the biggest thing, like, there's a lot of things that go into it, but it affects every team financially when an extra car gets ran. So especially if there's going to be a team every round, you got to think like now the TV time's spread up between one extra car, right?
Yeah,
So all of your exposure and stuff, that goes down amongst like any other back-end things that go on with supercars. There's a lot of like downfalls for a team amongst, also having another competitor. Like Pete Adderton, someone that when he does something, he does it to full capacity and he'll always do everything perfectly well. And, if he did a team, and he had someone like Stanaway driving for him or something like that, they're going to do a damn good job. And yes, there's going to be a lot of teams that aren't going to be in front of them. And, Boost do such a good job in marketing as well. So there's a lot of downfalls for being teams, I think.
Are you for or against it though?
I'm for it, man. I want to race. Like, I want people to race. I want everyone to have as much opportunity as possible. Like, let's have 40 cars, like whatever. I love that kind of stuff.
It'll make a lot more. I don't know. It's one of those hard things, like you say. You're gonna lose some of the airtime for some people, but at the same time, the more cars, then maybe it could be the more like fans you get, which means more people there, more tickets, more watch time, all that increases. So that could counteract it. I don't know, but you just start to see, like we see in NASCAR, they've got so many personalities, so many cars out there. They are generating in a way. I don't know. America has a way of airing sports and media. That's what we talk about, that Australia seems to just not be on that level yet.
It seems diluted, in my opinion. Like, you watch the NASCAR and the IndyCar, the way that they do it all, and they've even got their own charter system, right? And especially in NASCAR, where they're obviously down to, I think, 36 cars, but back in the day, there were 43. I still reckon that supercars could, as you said, have more cars on the grid. Cameron Hill came on, for example, and said, the Gen 3 thing, exactly what you touched on. If so be it, in 2 years, there's enough Gen 3 cars out there, you just move the Super 2 cars along to all Super 3, and you just have Super 2 and supercars all racing at the 1,000. Do you know what I mean? Because you could create more exciting racing. The back markers create some more hard racing to pass them at the back. You want that old school mentality, which is what Pete loves.
That's what it used to be, man. That's how it was. Like, Bathurst used to run around with more than 40 cars,
Was there anyone that you idolised in supercars when you were younger, like when you watched it on TV?
Whoever was winning.
Yeah.
I'd always liked the way WinCup operated.
Yeah, okay.
It's just very smart about the way he does everything and very committed. He's had some pretty big sacrifices to get himself to where he's at today or where he has been the last few years. So I'd say, he's definitely someone I've always looked up for. But there's a lot of people in the industry that are behind the scenes that I look up to as well. Like, a lot of the people that I looked up to in go-karts. And
You can
like,
say their names, it's all good.
Oh yeah, but it's like Darren Harsack as well was someone who I knew used to watch him racing when I was a kid, like on replays and stuff. And I got to work with him. He was someone who was just so smart, knowledgeable, and taught me so many things. And someone that like I still to this day look up to and will never forget what he's done for me. And there's just like a lot of people in pit lane that are like that. Like I got to work with Rockstar from Walkinshaw at my last race in 2021. Helped me sew up the rookie championship at the Kable Young Gun Award. So he engineered me. And I just learnt like so much from him because actually in that year I'd engineer myself pretty much in the first year. So I'd just like talk with Ben Egglestone about like how I was feeling and then just make up like obviously a lot of decisions myself. A lot of the numbers were done by the engineer that was for Jack Sipp, who was my engineer last year, Stuart McDonald. He's a legend of a guy. So pretty much Jack had him because he signed first, and then it was like me just like doing my other stuff. Like,
you and Jack had a bit of a bromance, I remember.
Like good mates. I love that guy, man. He's so funny. He's the classic Sunny Coast surfer dude, man. Like,
is he?
Yeah, man. He's a good guy. His family's great too. I love his family, and I spent a lot of time with them. So
it seems like you two have kind of come from similar backgrounds in racing. Like you kind of make it. You're struggling for money to make it in motorsport, but you're still having fun. Do you know what I mean? And you kind of done your own thing, but I guess. You're both laid back, so that's why you got along. Do you know what I mean? Like
100%, yeah. Like Jack had done like a few other categories sort of before starting. He did have 4, and then he done I think maybe a bit of HQ stuff, but they also owned a V8 supercar that they could go down and drive.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, he sort of had a bit more experience when we started in Super 2 together.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it was a tough year for Jack because he was quite sick at the start of the year.
Yeah, right.
He had a middle ear infection, which like just completely threw off his balance. And the first round that we did was Bathurst. Like out of all places where you're gonna want your spatial awareness and balance, like it was really difficult for him. So he sort of started on the back foot, and then sort of had a really difficult year.
Yeah, right. Have you ever come into like a race where you've just been injured or like exhausted from a band thing? Have you ever had a weird experience?
Nah, never a weird experience. Driving home, like if I've had like probably more so at like go-kart race events because I did all my like mechanic stuff like engineering, driving. I obviously did it all. And in the year I won my first national championship, I was driving to these events like interstate, like just in my car and trailer, man. Just
you and yourself?
Just by myself.
So you're winning basically a national championship in go-karts by yourself?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So sometimes I'd bring a mate from school because I was only like a year or two out of school. I'd get a mate like just to come along, like push the trolley, fuel up the cart. But then I'd like, always, even still like when I was working for DPE and then my dad was coming to the races again, even still would do most of the mechanical work. Like dad would change tires and then I'd just do everything else really. Yeah. But because I'd be so exhausted from those events, like I experienced like hallucinations driving home. Like I'd see like cars that weren't there and like end up on the wrong side of the road, man, have to like pull over and stop. And just have a nap, and then the nap turns into like 6 hours, and then I'm like getting home late. Yeah. And then like it's just like there's a lot of pressure though because like I'd race at the events, and that was before. This is a year before I was paid to race by DPE. Yeah. So like I was still expected to rock up and work on the Monday. Like there was no time in lieu. There was nothing like that. Yeah. So like I was just trying to bust my balls to like finish podium on the Sunday at like maybe 1:30. Get in the car and drive back like 11 hours from Dubbo or like Queensland. I got transport too, so I was right. But South Australia like 7 hours, like all these sorts of places. Like it was just crazy. So that's certainly a weird thing I experienced. Is like dead set so tired, like from just like 2 days of no sleep, like hallucinations.
What's your favorite kart class? I got to ask.
Man,
you can go.
I like them all.
You can use the new gen or the X gen, basically.
I enjoyed direct drive stuff like in Clubby Light back in the day with the Yamaha.
Oh, I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, so that's sort of why I continued on that path doing the 100cc stuff. Yeah. When I went through and the new Army came in, it had the centrifugal clutch, so it was like less cool in that aspect, but still a phenomenal engine that had more power. And you should drive it like an old school engine, and people didn't really do that so much. Yeah. And like we had quite a big advantage for a few years in that category, particularly because someone who I learned to drive from as well as like Remo Luciani, someone who's like one of the most successful drivers in Australian history. Yeah. And he would drive it like an old school kart, which is how he taught me to drive the club and karts. And that's just how I drove the iArmy because it's an air cooled 100cc. Engine, like it was always on the airbox, like choking it quite a lot, and that was something that was quite rare. So you'd pretty much only really see me and Remo. So Remo's in heavies, I was in lights. You'd pretty much only see us doing it, but you'd see us like having quite good wins. Yeah. But I don't know, like people were just like, oh, it's like you don't need to do it these days, but like well, it's the same engine. Like, of course you need to do it these
So
days.
you drive it like a clubman that class?
Yeah, man. Like
really?
on the airbox.
Still to this day?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, shit, I
don't really drive these days, but yeah, you should. Yeah.
Yeah.
You should get one and you should drive it like that. Yeah. Yeah. And it should be easy for you because you would have done it back in the clubbing days.
Yeah.
It makes a big difference. Like 2 degrees in your crankcase temperature is like what you'd experience from doing a good job choking, which sounds like nothing.
Yeah.
But like, man, that's like 1.5 horsepower.
Yeah.
It like that's
from the box.
Yeah, man. It's like a lot. Like if you maintain your engine that well over a run, like at the end of the race, you'll experience like, 1.5 horsepower more. Like your head temp will always cool down straight away. But you got to try and keep
do you tune though? Do you tune those new engines or not?
Yeah, so even the drivers that I help now coach and engineer, I tune them on the stand relative to the weather straight away. It's just just a skill that I picked up over time. And you never really need to tune it on the track. But yes, you should. If you're not doing that, then you're going to need to tune it on the track. But yeah, I always do it on the stand. I never need to touch it when I drive out there. I'm just on the airbox, man.
How do you know to tune it to the weather? That's actually quite interesting.
It's like it's pretty particular. It's pretty hard to teach.
So for people listening to this who are go-karting.
So for people listening, like it's so hard to teach when I'm not showing, like I'm doing like noise.
It's all right. This can be an interesting coaching technique.
Yeah. So pretty much like the best way is to obviously start it up, warm it up, and then you want to be like loading up the engine like with the brakes. So you want to have it down to like 0 RPM. Well, not 0 because it's got a super clutch. It might be like slipping through it like 1800 RPM.
Yep.
And then you release the brake and you let it rev out. You don't want to be holding it forever. It'd be like a quick like sort of increase, and you can judge like how much it's revving out. So if you're experiencing like 15,000 RPM, similar to what you're doing on the track, then the thing's too lean on the stand.
Yeah,
You want that to be maybe like I would say on average between like 11.5 to like 12.8 depending on your gearing.
Yeah.
Because if you've got like a taller gear ratio, it actually revs up quicker on the stand. Because like obviously if you're familiar with engineering, it goes like drive. So like when it's on the ground, your gear ratio changes compared to when it's on the stand, obviously. So like if you've got like really tall gearing, it'll rev up quicker. So that like you'd experience higher RPM. But if you've got like a bigger rear sprocket, which is typically like more torque, it'll actually like take longer to rev out on the stand.
Yeah.
So like you want to be in that sort of rev range, but you want to make sure that it's not dying down low. So if you're like boom and it dies, it's because it's too lean. So you got to give it more on your low jet.
Yeah, right.
So it's like it's a combination. It's a balance of your low jet and your high. You want it to still be ticking over, but you don't want it to be making your clutch slip.
Yeah.
You don't want it to be dying.
Yeah.
And then you want it to be revving out like within that rev range. And like once you learn it, you can't go wrong. Like there's like never been a time I put any of my drivers on the track and the tune's been bad. Like I've never used any sensors, like no temperature sensors, no like air fuel, like no EGT, like none of that sort of stuff. But a lot of the kids I help these days, there seems to be so much money getting around in karts that everyone's got all the kit and caboodle. But like you just look at the numbers and like it's always perfect.
Yeah.
So like if you can get that finesse, and it's gonna be a benefit because you see so many drivers you would see back in the day that just like wreck the tune and start going backwards. They're like a great driver. They just might have slipped up on the tune.
I've done that once.
Yeah, you tune to the lights and like maybe your sensor's old, man. Like the lights ain't telling you like the most accurate stuff. That's why like you're always going to be accurate. Yeah. And you just tune it to the weather. Don't use a weather chart like or whatever you've got like a weather station.
There's so many of them these days.
Oh, just forget it. Just tune it on the stand. You get it right. Like, yeah.
And do you just if you know when you're standing there, the weather's generally whatever humidity and temp it is, you'll know in your head what you're working with.
Yeah, kind of like
you said, rather than using like you're saying charts and all this sort of stuff. Yeah.
Pretty much just how it performs on the stands, the biggest telltale. But like you'll get a pretty big reference. You can feel, you can smell the air, and cloud cover's a big one. Yeah. So like whether it's cloud cover or not makes like a really big difference. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So but it's like it's definitely something that everyone needs to learn. Like a lot of people just like rev the hell out of it on the stand, and it's like why? Like why are you revving it? Yeah. All you're doing is fatiguing your engine. The thing's not warm yet, so like you're definitely going to need to do a top end before you should need to really. Like it's just You've seen people be in the pits like like making it scream or freeing it up. It's like no, you're not freeing it up. You're going to cost more in rebuild. So.
Yeah, I was always careful when I was racing just to be like. Yeah, as you said, just keep it at that certain point. Do you know what I mean?
You see, the thing is though, is like when you do it slow like that too, like that's how I would warm it up as well. But I would always have a race plug and a startup plug. So whichever at the end of the race event, that one will become my practice club plug, which will then be my starter plug, and then I'll have my race plug that's only used on track. Because when you start it on the stand and you're revving so low, it's not really getting enough air and enough RPM to burn off the fuel, and because it's two-stroke, to burn off the oil left on the spark plug. So you experience like a fouled spark plug, which is something I never experienced.
I'm just amazed how you figured all this stuff out. Like, when did you start figuring out all this go-karting?
I don't know, man. Like I started working on my kart like pretty much the same time I was old enough to get a job. Yeah. I started doing all mechanical work myself, which I was then able to just put an extreme amount of effort and time into it. Yeah. Picked up a lot of stuff myself, but also, you know, those names I dropped before, like Darren Hossack, Remo Luciani. So like that plug thing, I learned from Remo Luciani, and like a lot of the kart stuff I learned from like Darren Hossack, Bart Price, like really incredible drivers. You know,
Did you write this stuff down, or did you just remember it by
memory bank? Yeah.
Yeah, right. Wow.
Did your dad teach you anything as well?
Enough to keep the kart running.
Yep.
But he never he didn't have like too big of a background in racing. Like he did stock cars over in New Zealand. He was like quite good.
Yeah,
but it's like not really applicable to go-karts.
Yeah,
like it's pretty different.
You got to tell me about your dad's racing career then, because he's done Clubman. What was it?
He did
Rotec
Clubman
over 40s. Did stock car racing in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he moved over here when he was 18, so he didn't really race for that long. So like he pretty much like, I don't know if he probably won stuff here or there, I don't know. But yeah, he just raced in stock cars. Like over there, it's crazy. He's got to crash into each other pretty much. You got to be fast, but you got to be good at crashing. So like, it's pretty nuts, man. There's pretty big injuries that go on in that, because the bodies are so frigid and stiff, and you got bars going everywhere to keep the thing stiff. Like, that's all the more impact to the driver, man. There's no absorbing going on anywhere, man. Absorbing's in the seat. Like it's crazy, yeah.
Do you keep yourself? How do you keep yourself like floppy and relaxed? Because like some drivers, I don't know, go for a run before a race, and me, I basically sleep. That's my
really?
That's the way I get relaxed. And I even have. Do you have a racing like ritual? No. How you get into the car? You don't have any lucky undies or anything?
You know what? When I was a kid, if I was going good at a 2-day race event, I would keep like the same socks on and wear the same undies all weekend. If I started going shit, I'd change them.
See, that's exactly what I do.
I don't do that now at all.
Adulting now, Daniel.
Yeah.
Oh, you still do that? Okay. Sorry, I don't mean to make you feel inferior. That's so funny. Yeah.
Brooks always been like, I ended up winning the Formula 4 championship, but Brooke was like to me,
it's all the undies, baby.
I'll never let this down.
I'll never let it down. But I ended up trying to wear the same, like what you said before. And Brooke called me out. She's like, "You're not wearing these undies again, are you?" And I'm
like, "Are we talking unwashed?"
Yeah, unwashed.
You went between races unwashed.
No.
He was trying to. In a loop.
No, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I was trying to keep it unwashed.
Holy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And she made me stop it. And then in my head, it gets into your head like you're going to choke because something's different's happened.
Yeah.
And that's basically what it. But at the end of the day, I still end up winning. But I was like, now what I've done is basically I have the same undies, but they're the same color. So in my head, it's
he's got duplicates of the same.
I've got duplicates,
but I still stand there and go, "Are you lying to me?"
Yeah.
Well, to be honest, I'm a free baller anyway, so like I can't.
Do you free ball in your race?
Yeah, I wear I'm free ball all the time, man. Like,
really?
I'm free balling right now. Yeah, let it hang, baby.
That's really funny.
That's classic.
But yeah, I wear socks though. So then even when I was a kid, I used to go to the same toilet cubicle. If I was going well, if I was going bad, I'd change cubicles till I was going good. Then I'd just stay in the same one. Yeah. But like I'm not really a skeptic like that now. Yeah. I'm not saying you're wrong in what you do. Yeah. You won a Formula 4 championship doing it, so let's keep doing what you're doing, man. So,
but do you have any like certain things that you eat on a weekend too, like especially for your national karting championships and stuff like that?
In the supercar, it's probably like it gets hot in the car, man. It's always like between 25 and 35 degrees hotter in the car than it is outside. Plus you got like fireproof underwear as you're aware with, what I'm sure you'd wear, like, and you've got your race suit as well as your balaclava, helmet, your gloves, your boots. Like it gets real hot in there. Yeah. So you always want to be having something that's going to give me good lasting energy. So yeah, they're just pretty much eating clean. Like I'll be eating clean and obviously be as fit over the whole year, but mainly like 2 weeks prior to a race event, I'll try to eat quite clean. But you know, a lot of the foods I do like some dirty foods. Like I like a good dirty burger and stuff. But it's probably more of like a Sunday meal, that one. Yeah. But yeah, I try and just eat like real clean, like pretty lean, but just nice and clean, really. Just not too many fats, but carbs and proteins. So like carbs during the day and like proteins at night. Yeah. Oh, no, sorry, other way around. Proteins during the day, carbs at night is a good one. You
would have had to stay fit for obviously being in a band and racing though, wouldn't you? So would it be the same type of fitness schedule in a way? What would you be doing to?
Not really fit for being a muso, man.
Okay,
I mean, to be honest, I'd always rock out on stage quite a lot, and I'd be tired, man. Like it's sweat up there, like just as much as a supercar. Yeah. But probably not really. I mean, you lose a fair bit over a race event in water weight in the supercar. Yeah, that's for sure. So I experienced quite a lot of weight loss over weekends just from water weight. But that comes down to probably not managing your diet good enough. Like at the start, I'd drop like 2 kilos in a race event. But that's because I didn't have my diet exactly how it should have been. So once I was able to eat the right stuff and my body was actually able to take in the water instead of just drinking it and peeing it out, then I probably experienced a little bit less of that. But yeah, not so much fitness with the band. Yeah, like as you asked before, like about like pre-race rituals or pre-show rituals, like no, I don't have any. I just like just chilling, talking to whoever, like just talking to people, doing whatever, and then just getting in the car and driving. Like it's probably something I carry across from go-karts, because when I was racing for Arrow Karts, we'd have the team truck there. But my role was also like helping out other drivers in their team, or like anybody with that brand go-kart that would come up to the truck for some help. So like after every race event, I'd have to document my whole setup, like to every single stiffness, every single compound of everything on my kart. And we'd export that to our dealer network and post it on Facebook. So like everyone always had my setup. Yeah, right. Yeah, so like because I was having to talk to so many people so much at race events, and then I just have to get in and drive in between, obviously working on the kart and engineering, it was always quite a busy schedule. And yeah, I don't know, it's just like easy for me, really. Because it's like sort of a bit more closer to normality for me. So like if I can just be a little bit closer to the way I am, which I'm sort of like chill all the time. Yeah.
You're a bit of a gypsy. I like it. You're very chilled. You just come in, you're like, yeah, man, I'll just hang out. I'll just, you know, I need to go to the toilet. There was no like, flow. Yeah, you just go with the flow. It's actually, it's crazy like what you've told Brooke and myself today, like how you like basically like pick up everything. You know what I mean? Like you've just got that knack, which is an awesome ability, which is basically what supercar, which has helped you with supercars, right? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess like as a kid, like I just used to like fuck around a lot. I don't know if you've seen the I don't know if we can swear on this.
No, you can't. You can.
Yeah. So I don't know if you've seen the video.
Fuck shit and everything.
Yeah, all right, we can say fuck and shit. Cool. So I don't know if you've seen the video. It's like the more you fuck around, the more you find out. Yeah. It's very much so how like I lived my childhood, of just like doing stupid crap and just like trying different things and learning different skills. And then I guess when I started working, like I worked in. When I first started work, I worked at timber factory. My dad manages, like cutting timber. Like it was sort of something I had to learn, nothing serious. But then, once I actually finished school and started working properly, there was like so many different roles and stuff like that was included in my career there at DP Car Technology, which is like a maybe 5-year span or something like that. Yeah. So many different roles, so many different skills I had to pick up. It was always like just doing something. So it's like, yeah, I don't know. It's always been like quite easy in that sense. But it's, I got to play guitar as a kid. I got to race go-karts and I was still doing school sport. Like I was just always doing shit. Yeah. So it was probably, I don't know, probably something you just pick up.
But at the same time, you're working hard. Like you said, you went into the Super 2 you said, and you just studied it for 2 weeks and you know what I mean? Like, yeah, you pick it up, but you're also like not to make it sound like you're not doing anything. In a way, I'm just saying you really worked hard at these things too as well, because you wanted them, like your music career and the driving as well, which is like really shown in what you do.
Thanks. Yeah, it's like you're out there. Like it's two things I've always wanted to do, and like especially this racing stuff, and it's just I guess not leaving any stone unturned. Yeah, is that the right saying? Yeah. Yeah. It's just I don't know. Just want to do everything right. So yeah. But that's the biggest thing, like you mentioned before, about like me obviously managing my own career as well. It's just another control method that I can have over my career of just making sure everything's done right. It's crazy busy. Yeah. And, like I said before, like, I've got to find the right person to manage me. It would be good because then I could probably step back a little bit more. But I guess the bigger sponsors I get, the more I can learn to step back and then probably do more driving stuff. Because to be honest, like I'm only ever driving at the race event. And that was something that Ben and Rach Egglestone are like, man, like you had like literally just like, you're doing a good job because you're just rocking up and racing and like beating a lot of guys. But I feel like you'd be doing so much better if you're doing all these other categories like everyone else. The reality is I don't have the money to do that. Like I'd scrape in every penny just to do Super 2.
Yeah. Do you train in go-karts at all?
I used to until I just ran out of time. But I am going to get a kart very shortly, get a van, and then like I'll probably go out like 4 days a week, man. I'll just do mornings because like I don't really work too much in the mornings. I do my own sort of stuff in mornings and nights, and then like I'd say my peak period talking to people and going to meetings is probably from like a 10 till like maybe 5:30 p.m. So 10 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. So like I was thinking before that, I go to the track at like 7, do a few hours, come home, and then start work. So I'll be like driving all the time. So looking forward to that.
I feel for me, like I'm karting on Friday just for my Bathurst prep.
Nice,
like
good, man. That's good, yeah.
I got to know from you because you're a sim racer as well. But do you find karting more efficient to your training, or do you find sim racing?
Like karting, without a doubt. You're actually driving something. It's real. Like sim's not real, man. I know I'm going to offend a lot.
Oh, it's all right. Tony Kanan wrote this on Twitter.
It's a video game. Like, I know it's pretty realistic, but it's not the real thing. So like, it's not the real thing.
Tony Kanan was saying on Twitter, he's like, what is sim racing? Is it a video game or is it like a sim thing where you learn? Because the old school drivers like myself and a few others, like you have said, it is a video game. And the thing for karting is for us is you can feel it on track. Do you know what I mean? Like there's just that element and it also makes you sweat. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely. I think, as you just said, like being able to feel something under you, you're driving in real life with pedals, wheels, an engine, all that sort of stuff. It's still applicable.
Yeah.
Like it's clearly applicable because, you know, we managed to go quite good straight away when I stepped, you know, we spoke about before when I stepped in the supercar and I didn't do the other categories. So it shows you like, to be fair, I was sim racing when I was younger as well. So who knows, maybe they both contributed. And without a doubt, like not to discredit anyone's passion for sim racing here, because I think it's great. I just don't have the time for it. But it does teach you plenty of stuff. And I did do sim stuff, as I mentioned before. You
did over lockdown and that cash converters championship. Was that it?
Yeah. So I did both. I've done both of those. Yeah. So I had a sim for the first one. So Track Racer kitted me out with a bunch of stuff.
Yep.
And then for the second one, I just borrowed my friend Bill Caracolis, went around to his garage and we just have a Barbie, and then I'd hop in and do the E series and then pop back out afterwards. So yeah.
Do they? How does it work for Fox Sports? Because they were televising it, and Brooke,
live,
Brooke and I were watching it once, and we're like, "Hang on, this is a computer game that's on TV." Like they full take it seriously though. Like all credit to Supercars, it is pretty cool because, as you said, it's hard to get a race car on the track all the time. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, and it was good because like when we did it last year, obviously the calendar was running. The first time it was, you know, it was needed to get, I guess, some television rebates and stuff that Supercars would be getting. This time it was for a different reason. You know, it was a fair few fans wanted it back. So yeah, we did the second E series and it's good fun. Like you kind of forget that you're on camera because we've all got a webcam like streaming back. Yeah. And so like you're eating dinner or something. Like I was like eating pizza on live TV. They like got me on like because I did endurance race. I was like eating pizza and like I kind of forgot. And I had the stream next to me and I saw it. I was like, oh, you idiot. Like, yeah. But then after that, I was like, oh yeah, like you could probably play this muso thing a little bit. So the next enduro, I had my bass there because I always got my bass in my car with me. So I was like, going out, I was like playing the bass and I like, I got that for like, you know, 10 minutes and I had like sponsor logos behind me. So I upped the value for them, which gave me a little bit of firing power. So like it you know, sort of milk it a little bit. I wouldn't say like I ever really milk anything like that. Sort of just try to keep it natural. But like after that pizza incident, I was like, oh yeah, like if I pull my bass out and I start slapping it here, like they're going to put it on TV. Sponsors behind are going to be happy because their logo is going to be on television. So yeah, it worked out pretty good. Cool. But it's good fun. It is an opportunity for us to get a little bit more exposure. Guys like myself that, you know, aren't in the main series yet and have a desire strictly to be, like it's just another opportunity to be up against these guys and have a bit of fun and just some more exposure to the Supercar fan base. Yeah.
Before we get to the Fast Five, have you heard of the Fast Five?
No.
Okay. It's a game show.
It's coming soon.
It's coming soon. Anyway, I want to ask you about. I want to ask you about.
Is it at the end of every segment?
Yep.
Yes.
I've watched so many like starts of them, and I've never made one all the way through.
It's coming to the end.
I reckon I've seen like all of them for like most of it, and never seen the fast.
We did do a leaderboard on Instagram. You didn't see it.
Nah.
Oh,
that's good. I like the improv stuff, man.
Yeah, it's good. It's all right. I wanted to actually know, why does Ben and Rachel Egglestone run 54 and 38 though, and you guys never get to change your number? Because where did number 12 come from?
So number 12, it's probably a bit of a center thing, to be honest. Like I started as 2, just because it looked cool when I was 7.
Yeah.
And then I had to run 22 sometimes because the guy that was racing for longer than me entered at 2 before me.
Yeah.
Like at club day, so I had to run 22. He stopped racing, so I could run 2 again.
Yeah.
I ran that, and then I started doing 12 again because I ran Junior National Light and Junior Clubbing simultaneously for a couple times and had to run, number 12 on 1 because one of the guys had number 2. So I actually got to race against like a fair few like good drivers in Junior Clubbing, like someone like Tom Randall and I can't remember who else did those, but some really good drivers.
Yeah,
like a fair few that are like in main series now that all went on to do cars earlier than me. But yeah, so it was pretty much just availability. Started doing 12 and I was like, oh no, I like the 12 because Ayrton Senna ran 12 and stuff like that. So yeah, I just ran those. And to be honest, like I always wanted to run like number 2, but a lot of the stuff like at Egglestone was all like pre-labeled. All the tools are labeled for each car. Like they do a good job. Every car has its own tool. Really, there's not many double up tools, only specialty tools really.
Yeah.
So like every car's got its own tool, so everything's labeled. So it's like it's a bit of a pain in the ass if you want to change number.
Yeah.
And there was like Stephen Page, like Big Pagey that ran in Super 3 in the Jayco car, the Page by the Jayco car.
Yeah.
His number was 2. So like there was a toolbox in with 2 all over it. So you end up mixing up all the stuff and the VF and the VE stuff are different tools and everything gets mixed up. Like a bit of a pain in the ass. But I can't remember the 54 and the 38 story actually.
Yeah.
I can't remember at all.
Yeah. I just found it interesting how they've never really changed their number in Super 2. Basically, there was 54 and 38, and you guys would have to stick to that number. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. PD ran 88 because he was running with Win Cup at the time.
Yep. Yeah, I remember
So
that.
Paul Umbrella ran 88.
Yep.
Which Tim Blanchard had run when he ran with us.
Yep.
I think. Yeah, he did a couple races with us in 2021, and then he replaced me at Townsville last year.
Yeah.
When I missed out. But yeah, he ran 88 for 2021, and then just used my 54 at Townsville. But I can't remember for the life of me. I can't remember why.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a story. It's not like too crazy or anything. But
Yeah. Oh, good. I just
maybe you
want
have
to
to get Rach on here.
Yeah, maybe we'll get
We will.
Rach and, maybe we'll get Ben and Rach on here.
Yeah, Ben's funny, man.
Yeah.
Like, it'd be so good to have on here. And, like, because Rach runs the business herself. So, like, she, is a good person to talk to as a team owner inside of the back end of that sort of stuff.
Yep.
Like, Ben runs everything in the shop. And he's just like a battler guy. Like, he's just like, always telling jokes sort of thing. Whereas like Rach is like full serious and particular, like control freak, like perfectionist. Make sure everything's perfect, So like they would be good to get on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe in future. Anyway.
Do. Yep. Okay.
We'll
you
get
ready?
we'll get to the fast five.
All
Ready?
right.
Alrighty.
All right. Question number one, and we can talk about these subjects within them, so it's all good.
Wait. So how fast is this 5?
No.
No,
It's just 5 questions. It's just
All right.
I just want to make it sound cool. That's why it's called the fast 5.
I like it.
So we can talk a bit on these subjects. It just depends on yourself, really.
Yeah.
First one is, what years did Supercars Hall of Famer Paul Dumbrell race for Egglestone Motorsport? How many years? Like, what years did he run?
How many?
Run
So
for
from
Ben and Rach.
2012
Yep.
to 2016.
Oh.
Wrong.
No, wrong.
Oh, by the way, we've got to add to the segment. So, if you get below 3, you get a shit prize. If you get
what do we get prizes?
Yeah, there's prize. I saw him jump that. I'm
Yeah.
thinking, hang on, we haven't
How
described
good.
this.
Yeah.
So more than 3, you're going to get a great prize, and less than 3, Dan's going to find something under his desk.
Yeah.
That one you were just off. It was 2014 to 2018.
Yeah.
It's
Did he
just
run
a
18?
slight-
Did he do 18?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. According to Wikipedia. We'll just add that there. Second question is, actually, you know what, Brooke? I'll let you have this one.
All right. What was the band Wolf Mother called before Wolf Mother?
I have no idea. I'm out.
I thought you were
Terrible muso.
We thought maybe you know.
Oh, funny fact, I'm actually friends with the bass player of Wolf Mother, like really good friends, Bobby Poulton. But
Yeah.
you have to tell me the answer now.
It's
bugger.
White Feather.
White feather.
In 2009 was
Feather,
before
White
they
Feather.
changed White Feather. Yeah.
Very same in syllables, isn't it?
Yeah, I know, right? Wolf Mother, White Feather.
Yeah.
Question number 3. It is a multiple choice question. The rest of them are multiple choice. So,
Okay.
so it's basically
So
like
I've got a chance now.
Yes.
Get
it's
set.
basically
Dan
like
was harsh at the beginning.
basically
Yeah.
like
I
who
should have
wants.
got PD one. That was silly.
You got 3 of these multiple choices to catch up for a good prize.
All right.
What year did Arrow Karts founder Drew Price go into Motorsport Australia, into the Motorsport Australia Hall of Fame? Was it A, 2016, B, 2017, C, 2018?
2016.
Oh, wrong.
Really? Oh,
So far, nothing right.
really?
2018.
Oh, this is great. Hey, what happens if I get none right? Do you have a participation badge that I can take home?
That's actually really good.
I don't know. Dan's going to have to find
I'm going to have
something
to find
behind
some.
there.
I do have a present for no.
We've had one person so far that got 0, so you wouldn't be
Really?
the only
a
one.
present,
to do.
a present for getting none right. That's you get booted out the door.
Nah, we booed no one.
Nah, we're right.
so
You'll still get a prize. It'll just be a shit prize.
Yeah,
It'll basically.
so we're
yeah.
getting a shit prize.
Yeah. What year did country singer Adam Brand debut in the V8 Utes? Was it A, 1997, B, 2000, or C, 2002?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm glad it's multiple choice.
Yep.
Because I didn't know that Adam Brown race Utes.
Yep.
So, all right, think about his career. 2002.
Yes,
Yes.
correct. You got a point on the board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine for all the viewers, they just
Yeah.
wanted me to get a point, and they're just like, "Yeah, that was correct." Like, they do me a solid, go and edit the Wikipedia because like anyone can edit it. Like,
Guys, edit.
yeah, I got
Nah.
my back.
Yeah, that's good. That was a good. At least you got a point on the board. I'll give
Yeah,
you
we
that
got
much.
1 point on
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, you're not
Numbers
you're
on the
not,
board.
You're not a zero, you're not a zero in the
Do you
OTC.
remember that song by Pusha T? Numbers on the boards. It was probably real big right when you were going through high school. I reckon.
No, I don't remember that.
Probably if I heard it, but now I'm just like, I don't know. I'd probably have to hear it again.
All right.
Did you know his best mates with Wade Orger, who's a sprint cars commentator?
Really?
And he got involved in V8 Utes because he's best mates with Adam Brand, and that's how basically when the Utes originally started, he was commentating the Utes. So that's how that whole. If you look back on it, you go on the archives, you'll see
that.
you'll see
First
Wade
I thought
Orger.
you were talking about Pusha T.
No.
I
I was talking about Adam Brand and
it's so
yeah.
good.
My brain was just going, what?
That's so funny.
Yeah, and Craig Dontis, obviously, who's massive in the supercars scene, was back racing with Adam Brand, and I'm sure you can talk to him about Adam Brand and whatnot.
Yeah, cool.
So you can get 2 out of 5 correct in this one, Matt. If you can get it, I hope you know your Bathurst 1000 stats to come back on this one.
I do know a fair bit. I'm not going to pump myself up too much, but I've watched a lot of old replays.
All right, cool.
Yeah, I was hoping for some old replay
Sweet.
ones.
Here we go.
I reckon you might get this one right. I'm just saying. Who won the Bathurst 1000 back in 2014? Was it A, Mark Winterbottom / Stephen Richards, B, Will Davison / Jonathan Webb, or C, Chaz Mostert and Paul Morris?
Oh,
I can repeat the
it was
question.
Chaz and Paul Morris.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Hey,
remember
we got
that.
2 out of
Yeah.
5.
No dramas there with that.
That was a good score.
2 out of 5. Oh,
Did you say it was a good score?
Yeah.
Oh,
Wait,
Zach,
wait,
it's quite condescending of you, that.
No.
That's not a good score.
In my head, I was saying, I'm like thinking of the leaderboard, and I'm like, it's not bad. There's a lot of, 2s and 1s
look.
we've got in that leaderboard, So
Okay, all right.
you know what I'm going to give you?
what have you got?
That's pretty cool.
It's I don't know, maybe you can use this
Everyone else
at
is for blowing bubbles, the really long
Is
sticks.
that bubbles or is it something else?
It is
Hey,
for
could double as
everybody
both,
who's
huh?
wondering.
Yeah. But
It looks like something else.
yeah, it's
Thanks.
basically a blowing bubble thing. It's not a very interesting prize today, unfortunately for the
At the next Supercars, you can be running around with it. Whee!
Yeah.
But before we go, Matty, we don't have to enter the Fast Five. What's your future goals into Super 2 this year? Do you have any game plans, even to get into a team? Any back? Because these episodes are filmed well in advance, so you don't have to worry about what's coming. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what's your plans basically to get in there? Is it obviously the Boost Mobile thing? You're hoping that pays off, and hopefully sliding in with a race team with a car that's there, or what's the go?
Yeah, so the Boost one's just another one of my sponsors, which I obviously will always be looking to build on. So the biggest thing is just to have all my sponsors together like they are at the moment. There's a lot of fun sort of getting around in the background. Not a huge amount, obviously not like any of the people that have family support or anything, but enough to get me through a Super 2 year. So the goal is to find a seat. But then after that, the goal is to win the series.
Yeah.
If not, then I'll definitely be still doing a few rounds in the Super 2 series and doing the whole S5000 calendar.
Yep.
It's an interesting category, S5000, because you get to do more racing than you do in Super 2, and there's a whole nother round. So it'll be a good one. It'll be the most racing I've done in a year. If I do 3 races in Super 2, and I do the rest in S5000, that's more races than what I've even done back in go-karts, man. Would only do the Australian Championship and then States and City Melbourne. So 7 events every year.
Yeah.
So if I'm doing, what's that? That's 10 sort of thing. And then, we've been working on some co-drive stuff. So hopefully by the time this airs that I've worked that out. But it's looking like we're going okay. But there's a couple parties. One that I'm really, really keen on. But just gonna have to see how that pans out.
Would you like to team up with Jimmy Golding with his seat because you've been mates for years? Or
he's a good operator, man. Yeah, he does a good job. I think anyone that has his level of commitment would be good. It's good to see. Obviously, he lost his drive. Obviously, when Gary Rogers stopped doing it.
Yeah.
For him to go and do it, carry like S5000 and then get back in and do a great job straight away.
Yeah.
Stepping into a car he's never driven halfway through the year. Pick up so quickly.
Yeah.
It shows he's a good operator. I'd step in there. There's to be honest, there's a lot of people I'd go with, but he'd be a good operator.
And you haven't been tempted by the ARG TCR route by any means, or not really?
Well, look, Supercars
backup
my
plan?
career. Yeah, it's just Supercars. I mean, I have been interested in that.
Yeah.
I was actually supposed to replace Will Brown at HMO at Hyundai. When was that 2022 was last year. The start of last year.
20. Yeah.
Yeah, but I just wasn't able to gather enough immediate funds. I would have had to take away from the Super 2, and then it was probably going to cause problems.
Yeah, okay.
So I wasn't able to do that. But it's been an interest. But look, Supercars is my career path, and I would say that S5000 is probably similar to doing Super 2 or any supercar stuff, as demonstrated by Jimmy Golding, as mentioned. So I'd do it. as a backup. If I can't get any rounds in Super 2 whatsoever, then maybe I could do both of those simultaneously. The budget for them, it's so cheap compared to Super 2. Like, it's so good. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks, Matty, for coming on.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me, guys.
Cheers.
Yeah.
It's been fun.
It's been a good
It's
podcast.
been good. Yeah, cheers. Thanks,
Bye.
Matty.
Thanks, guys.